Going live in 3, 2, 1, go.
Hi, and welcome to the Technocrat Live. I'm your host, Matthew Newhall. Tonight, my guest is Jonathan Vasquez
Hello, guys.
of JVR Performance, and we're going to be talking about a lot about cars and about a lot about mechanical, the mechanical world and the auto world. So, so as usual, I got some news events first. So I'm going to blast through it, and then we'll get to you. We'll find out what's going on.
You got it.
So let's see. Okay, so first thing, Mr. Robot. This is actually what we were just talking about, Steve. So Mr. Robot just released a new teaser trailer, and they reaffirmed in that it is going to be the last season of Mr. Robot. So
I actually know someone that works on that show.
you know someone that works on Mr. Robot. Awesome.
Yes,
I one of my guests, I think, did some consulting for it, like as a tech consultant. Like,
Okay.
Is this true? Could this really happen? That kind of stuff. I have to say that show is one of the most accurate depictions of the tech hacking world on camera, maybe with the exception of War Games and Sneakers, which are movies, not a show. So probably the most accurate show. And really strangely, it's a big field and lots of people. There are people in the field who actually have DID or dissociative identity disorder in the tech field. So even that part of it's real.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So it's because it's a high functioning. It can be a high functioning disorder. So you can still program and fix things and whatever. Do all the tech world kind of things in the IT world. So yeah, I mean the whole thing is incredibly real and to the point where it's eerie. I mean, the go back and forth with China. It's basically a giant international cyber war. All these different countries and clandestine organizations.
I've never actually watched the show, but I know about it because I know someone that works on it.
Right. Yeah. Like a lot of the people who are people who work in the industry. Like you don't have to work in the industry. If you set a server up on the internet and allow attacks to come in. Like if you don't set up a firewall and just block everything off, if you let things come in and look at what people are doing, the attacks are from all over the world. So basically countries are just attacking each other, either in a coherent fashion that you can't see or just in a random fashion. So yeah, it's really like it's
crazy.
Yeah, it's a cyber war. It really is. Like most people don't realize when they go on the internet and they're like, oh, okay, I'm going to go to this site. I'm going to go look at this thing. That essentially it's like there was machine gun fire over your head. To use an analogy. I mean, analogies suck, but it's still pretty apt. So kind of an interesting thing, you guys can shoot me down, and by the way, questions are welcome if you're watching the show and you have any questions, or if I say something you think isn't true. I think this is true. So I've been looking at the ultralight laptops, and MacBook Air does not have an i7 model, and they're completely falling behind, and I'm really starting to think Apple's in trouble here. The MacBook Air is, I'd say, at least a generation behind its competitors. The processors are slower. The bezels are noticeable, like half an inch versus basically nothing on their competitors at the same price point. They really are. Apple always had the boutique kind of premium, but if someone knows of why they don't have any i7 chips in their Airs, if it was just
for the MacBook and MacBook Pros.
Yeah, well, particularly they have. So the hardcore, the big clunky laptops and the desktops, of course, they have i7s and even i9s. But
the MacBook's not running that.
But specifically, the ultralights are not competitive with their non-Mac counterparts in Windows, running Windows. So what's up with that? Anyway. And we did indeed go to Unconventional. We got lots of great footage. No idea when it's coming out, but I'll do another announcement when it comes out. So Retro Gaming Expo was awesome. If you're into old video games or even newish video games, that was the place to be. Kind of more serious, there's this, the Google Insider that anonymously came out to Veritas a couple months ago, apparently got outed. Google figured out who they were. He had a dead man switch, and he decided that he was actually safer with all that data in public and not having anything hanging over his head, so he actually released all of it. So I don't really want to get into the politics of this too much. You know, they're definitely they have definitely been accused of been leaning more on the liberal side and skewing search results towards the liberal side. Specifically with the machine learning, with the ML fairness algorithm. One of the things that came out with this payload when he completely came out and now he's public was that they were banning the AmericanThinker.com website. I saw a lot of the sites on there, and a lot of them are pretty heavily conservative. I don't really care if they ban conservative sites. They really should be forthright about it. That I care about. But American Thinker is like just a populist editorial page. It isn't even left or right. So that's really disturbing. So not only are they against right, but they're also against populist? What? Anyway, so not good. Some guys at DEF CON figured out how to fool license plate readers with T-shirts. So thanks again for Lee and Jeff for posting this up on Facebook. That's how I got this. So there's a line of T-shirts now that have license plates printed on them in a realistic enough fashion that if you walk by a camera light, that it will try to read your license plates, plural, and think that cars are stacked on top of each other. So, if you like confusing Uncle Sam and his tax grab, that's the way to go. DEF CON 27 that came out at. Let's see. Oh, that's the link for that. So here's kind of a cool thing I figured out, and I like to share ideas as I figure them out. So there's been a lot of discussion about 5G. Have you heard about 5G at all, or?
Just what you see on TV.
Just what you see on TV, like really, there's not a lot of devices out yet, and a lot of people are arguing about whether you even need this, and it's like, who is this for, and nobody cares. So current cell phone speeds are sufficient for any service you need on a cell phone right now. Anything that anybody would want to have. It's not even close. Like their 4G at its best is way fast enough for video, for streaming, for video gaming, for uploads and downloads, anything you care about. So the argument is that 5G is for augmented reality. You know what that is? It's like, right, you just have like glasses or a helmet or something. Probably not a helmet, that would look dorky, you know, and you're superimposing stuff, or like they do with the Pokemon game.
Yeah, but who's going to be using that?
Right. Well, that's what I said. I said, who cares, right? You know, because it's going to have to be really good. Nobody's going to put augmented reality glasses and then drive a car, because if they glitch, you can't see, you know?
Exactly.
That's crazy. So I'm like, why would you do this? I actually saw an application, a real-world application. There is a working code out there from a company for this, for something that I could see actually being used for augmented reality. It is a sneaker website, and you can virtually try on sneakers. So
The IKEA thing.
So like,
interesting.
Yeah. So basically, what you do is you're browsing through sneakers on your phone, and you say, "Oh, I want to see how that looks." You click on the sneaker, you hold your foot out, you point your phone at your sneaker, at your foot, and now you can see the sneaker on your foot. So if you want to see
crazy.
it is crazy, right? I assume it would work with a mirror too. I'm not sure, but it definitely works holding your foot out. So that got me thinking. Even if the app is buggy and new, this could actually change the clothing industry. And the retail decimation that we've seen from Amazon might actually start happening in the clothing space. So just something to think about if you're trying to figure out where to invest. Of course, who would be affected? Transportation, you know. The retail stores would be, you know, a lot of them are already on the brink, so that would be the end of them. And it doesn't, and I actually discussed this with my wife, and she's like, well, you have to try clothes on because you have to know how they fit. But we figured out that actually, that really it isn't just that you have to try clothes on that they fit. Some people just buy clothes because they think they look nice, particularly women buy clothes because they think they look nice without caring whether they're comfortable or not.
When was the last time you tried something before you bought it?
Well, me, I do because I'm a weird size. You know, I'm bigger and I'm oddly, you know, not everything is Sasquatch shaped, but you know, like, it's a joke. It's what you can laugh at me. It's fine. Yeah, not everyone looks like a Wookiee, but like, you know, I just don't think that it only takes like maybe 10% of the market to switch to buying boutique clothing without trying it on that weren't already doing that to really kill a lot of these retail stores. So, I mean, if 5G does succeed and they start coming out with more fashion-oriented augmented reality apps, that could be the final nail in the coffin of retail. And I don't even know what that means, because, I mean, at least right now, there's a network of retail stores so they can start selling other things. Like when Toys R Us went out of business, Target and Walmart and all of them started selling more toys.
It's supposed to open again.
Yeah, well, they just have 2 stores instead of 2,000. So,
Yeah.
and they're going to be smaller, and like if that doesn't go well, they're done. If that goes well, they'll open a few more, and then a few more. It could be a decade before kids can get toys on Christmas again. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what happens. If we have the clothing is the women's clothing in particular is like the staple that's keeping a lot of these stores open.
Yeah, but a lot of, especially with girls and women, they want to go out shopping. They want to go and try.
Completely agree. Yeah, I mean, for sure, 80% of them will not stop. I'm sure 30% of it's
I
social
can see
thing.
the younger crowd trying it out, but I don't know how.
Right. It just takes 10%, I think. That's all it's going to take. And then, anyway, so just something that, now you know what 5G is for virtual sneakers. Again, if you have any questions, let us know. We're going to get in, just dive right in. How did you get into cars?
How did I get into cars?
How did you get into cars, man?
This goes back to when I was a kid.
Okay.
It was always about cars. I was always fascinated with cars. I always wanted to be a race car driver. I didn't play with anything else but with cars.
Race car driver in races specifically, or like street racer kind of like?
No, like a professional race car driver. That's what I wanted to be.
Oh, wow.
And
I've never heard that before.
I was just fascinated with cars. I learned how to drive just by watching my dad drive. First time I actually drove a car, I was 7 years old. It was a stick shift.
Right.
So fast forward a few years later, when we came into the United States, I wanted to get into racing, but I couldn't afford it.
Right.
So I started to learn how to work on cars.
Right.
So I could actually afford to do all the work myself. And
you just ran with your passion, sounds like.
And just next thing you know, I just started working on cars. And
so when was the first time you ever got to a track?
I was 16 years old.
Nice.
I drove to a track. I went to Pocono Raceway, just to see an event, just to see what it was all about.
Right.
And I started asking questions of what I needed to do as far as for me to be on the track, and they answered. All those questions were answered. And I believe it was like a month or 2 later, I went and got myself a helmet. I had back then I had a.
Did you have to get one of those fireproof jackets too? Is that
no? Because
was that the track spec
when you
back
first
then?
start going to the track, it's called a DE event, which you go to the track, you take your own personal car. Obviously, make sure the car is safe.
And is this autocross or is this quarter mile racing?
This is road racing.
Road racing. Okay.
Actual racetracks.
Okay.
So I signed up for the event. They provided a instructor. Instructor went with me in the car, told me what I needed to do, what I was doing right. Once you get to the point where they feel you're safe to be on your own,
right,
they sign you off, and then.
Oh, so you have to almost do driver's ed just to get on the racetrack in the first place.
You have to go to.
So whenever you see hosts going out there like, look, I'm in a racetrack in their car, they're just doing that as an exhibition for that guy.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
You actually have to go.
You have to qualify.
You have to qualify. You have to make sure that you're safe to be out there. You got to go through the classroom. You got to understand the physics of actually driving fast. It's not just going out there and pressing the gas pedal all the way to the floor.
Right.
There's a lot more to it.
So the problem isn't the car, the problem is the driver in that case.
Well,
the biggest problem,
when you first start to drive,
yeah.
I think most of it, 90% of it is all mental. Because you have to overcome the fears of, am I going to crash? Am I going to do this? Or whatever it is. Or the thought of you were a really good street racer,
right,
and then you show up to the track and you're a nobody. You can't do what you thought you were going to do.
Right.
That's what happened to me because I used to do a lot of street racing, and I showed up over there thinking I was going to be a big dog.
Now, be careful. You don't want to give Big Brother or anything. Tell him you're a street racer. Was that here or is that where you were before?
Here.
Where did you come from? Where did you?
I came from Colombia.
Colombia. Okay. So when you were growing up in Colombia, you were doing street racing there, or
No.
you weren't old enough to drive there?
No,
Okay.
I wasn't. I was too young. I was 14 years old when I came
You wanted it, but you couldn't do it yet.
Exactly. I didn't
Were
have
people
a
street
license.
racing there? Is that a big
Oh, they
scene
do
there?
it. Yeah, they do it all the time.
I mean,
Every night.
it's changed, right? So, I mean, like, I remember I used to live in Francis Lewis, and I mean, people would just, all you'd hear all day on Franny Lou was,
That doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't happen
those,
anymore.
Those days are long gone.
Yeah.
So when I showed up, I realized that it was bigger than I expected, and it wasn't as easy as expected, and it became a challenge, and I wanted to do it.
Nice.
And then from that point forward, I just started going through all the steps to.
So what
get
kind of
better.
car were you running?
Back then, I had a '91 Nissan 240 SX.
Nice. That's a good
That-
choice for a
that-
low budget
Yeah,
fast car.
that was my daily driver, and obviously I did the suspension on the car, I did the tires, the
Right.
brakes, and all this other stuff.
Were you doing this stuff because you were getting extra money and you wanted to upgrade it, or was it breaking and you're just improving the parts as you went?
I just wanted to upgrade the car.
Right.
You know,
Oh, so you're preemptively. You're not waiting till stuff breaks. You're
yeah,
just
I'd spent every dollar.
ripping stuff, perfectly good parts out, and
No.
Yeah.
So back then, it was all about trying to make the car go faster. I didn't
Nice.
care about paying bills or anything. I mean, I was a kid, so
Right.
whatever I worked, I spent it on the car.
right.
And
I did that too, but it was not voluntary. My first car was a '67, so it was like everything was falling up.
It was
All
always
the rubber
breaking.
was gone. You know, everything was rusting out. I was like, oh my god! Every month I had to repair it. It was a nightmare. Anyway,
So then after that, like I said, I just went through the ranks, and
Yeah.
then I got my race license, and I just started racing, and I haven't stopped since then.
nice.
That's
Wow.
basically what happened. Obviously, not everything was about race cars.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I got a regular job in a mechanic shop, started learning,
Right.
and then I realized that in order to
What were you doing
make
at first in the mechanic shop? What was your test?
oil changes, changing
right.
flats, cleaning the cars, because obviously I
Jiffy
didn't have.
Lube, yeah.
You'll show up to the shop and they'll ask you, well, what can you do?
Right.
I was like 16 years old, 17 years old. I was like, oh, I could do everything.
So usually this is interesting. If you're not a car person, but you know, of course, everyone has to deal with, especially Long Island, because you got to drive everyone here.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you know, like, you go to a place, and the guys who do the undercarriage work tend to be the junior guys. You know, not always. Sometimes, specifically like alignments are a little touchy. You know, that's not always the junior guy. But a lot of shops will just take the guy that they just hired last month, and that'll be the guy doing your brakes. I know it sounds scary, but brakes are pretty simple.
It is actually pretty simple.
Yeah.
But then I realized that if
Until
I
something
wanted,
goes wrong, then it's not simple.
exactly, then I realized that if I actually wanted to make money on working on cars,
Right.
I needed to learn how to actually do diagnostics, how to get into electronics and all these other things.
Yeah.
And then I started focusing on that, and
Right.
then I started obviously getting better at it.
So you're doing brake jobs for grandmas in the day, and at night you're speed racer.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
So, but that's not what I know about you now. I mean, you have a shop. It's JVR Performance, right?
Well, the name is JVR Auto.
Oh, okay.
The original name, where that name came up, was JVR Performance. Back when I was 22 years old, I opened up my first shop.
Right.
And all I was doing was performance work and race cars.
Right.
Then the
Were you
2008,
just doing performance work?
just performance work and race
So
cars.
no brake jobs for grandmas.
I wasn't doing any
Right.
regular.
Don't worry,
auto
I'm
repairs.
not hurting your feelings, grandmas. We love you. So.
I wasn't doing any regular work.
Right.
It was just upgrading cars to make them go faster and working on race cars.
Right.
And then when the economy crashed in 2008, what's the first thing that you stop doing?
Yeah.
Spending money on your toys.
Yeah.
Then
You
I
sell
fa-
the boat. You put the car in the garage and you forget about it.
Then I found myself having a shop completely empty, not doing anything.
Right.
And then I closed the shop, went on to work in a regular auto repair shop, doing managing the shops.
Do you want to plug your shop right now, or is that where you are now?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, my shop right now, it's JVR Auto. We're in Port Washington.
Right.
We do everything in the shop.
Right.
We do anything from fixing a flat tire to doing any electronic work on
Right.
the car. We do wheel alignments.
I mean,
I have.
So I go to him. He knows his stuff, so I'm not just
That's how we met each other.
Yeah. That's how we met each other. So.
I
a
have
friend who's also a motorhead recommended you, and I'm like, well, he's a motorhead. He probably knows.
So we also have a chassis dyno. So we have the ability to tune the cars in the shop and measure horsepower and so on and so forth. I have a set of scales where I could use to set up the cars for the racetrack. And we
Oh,
have,
I didn't know you had a scale in the shop.
Yeah, we have
Okay,
scales in
cool.
the shop.
Awesome.
And we just do it all. Anything from a grandma's car to a race car
Nice.
from scratch.
Yes, and I can testify to that because I've got a Marauder with a supercharger, and that's
Correct.
aftermarket.
Yeah.
And I've also got a 4x4 van that's like just completely out of this world. Nobody
pretty
knows what
big.
the hell to do with it.
I know. I remember the first
Like,
time
what
I
is
saw it, I
this?
was like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, I get that reaction. I've actually stopped traffic, not that often, but occasionally people are like, "What?" You know, especially in New York.
I couldn't believe you actually took that thing cross country.
It was awesome. It was totally awesome. It was really
Pulling
great.
the trailer and everything.
Pulling a trailer, 5 miles per gallon in the Rockies, man. It was brutal, but it did it.
You should have gone diesel.
I should have gone diesel. Well, you know, they didn't have diesel. So if you want so the reason I went with the E350 van is because that was the last year, 2014 was the last year they do the frame. And after that, they went to the Transits. Now, they have the boosted, you know, I'm all about boost, so I don't mind the EcoBoost engines. But, I wanted something really sturdy. I wanted something that was going to last because it's a really expensive investment when you make something into a camping van.
Yeah.
When you upgrade a van like this, it's a lot of money you put into it. So I didn't want it to just, you know, be there and then be gone. So I wanted the time tested design. There were tons and tons of parts and options for it. There was
You had
really
it
nothing
custom
out.
made?
Some of it was custom, yeah. So
Okay.
it was the engine and the 4x4 system was drop shipped from Ford.
Okay.
And technically the interior was too, because it had it drop shipped from the shop that did the 4x4 conversion to a shop that did the interior. And then I got it. I picked it up as a new car in what state was it? Actually, I picked it up on Friday the 13th.
No way.
Yeah, that's
That
where-
was like perfect.
yeah. I picked it's the yeah. So it's the Friday the 13th.
If you guys ever saw it, you'll understand why we're saying that.
Yeah. Thanks, man. That means a lot coming from you. Yeah, it's not. You're not going to win any races in it, but I mean,
It's not something that you see all the time.
you know, like where you go? Watch the road. We don't need roads. You know, it's
Pretty
like
much.
that. Yeah, it's just,
I don't think you'll get stuck with that thing anywhere.
I don't think I get that. It's really good in the snow. I mean, it's just like I'm like jumping for joy when they say there's going to be a 2-foot blizzard because I'm like, yes, finally I get to use it.
Now you get to use it.
When you started racing, when you started doing road racing, did you want to branch out into other kinds of racing? Did you have to as part of your career, or
I didn't have to do it as part of my career.
I don't know if it's like requirements. You have to do this to get to that, or anything.
No,
like that.
one of the two of the racing that things of racing that I was interested in was either road racing or I wanted to do rallying. Because when I was a kid, I used to watch rally from Europe. But then I realized that it wasn't so big in the United States. Even road racing is not, it's bigger now, but when I started it wasn't so big. So there wasn't like opportunities to get sponsorships or anything like that. So I did it as a hobby, as a passion, something that I love to do.
Oh, okay.
And I've never looked back. You know, the most fun that I have is doing that. You know?
Right. Is that the name of the game when if you want to make it sustainable? You know, if you're not just doing it as a hobby, if you're trying to do it for a living, is it all about sponsorship and getting people to sponsor you?
Correct.
Yeah.
It's a very expensive sport. It's a very expensive hobby.
Right.
You're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars. So
Yeah.
now to race professionally, you're talking about you could spend $1 million, if not more, a year renting a car or having your own car.
Right.
But
There's not all that goes into the car. Some of that's the maintenance, the crew to help fix it when you break it on the track.
Professionally speaking, if you do a pro event, you're talking about you spending $20,000 to $30,000 for a single event between tires, towing the car there, hotel, entry fees, and whatever all the stuff the car might need.
Right.
And it's a common thing.
You're going to have to go to tech. They're going to have to approve your car. So for people who don't know, I mean, I don't really know road racing at all. So,
Okay.
But like I've done the quarter mile, and they'll inspect your car. Someone will come. They won't even let you down the track till they look at your car.
You have to go through a process where they check the cars. They go from bumper to bumper once a year, but in between events, they also check the car. Obviously, you got to have your safety gear. If your safety gear is not up to date, they check it for every single event. If it's safety gear is not up to date, you're not allowed to be on the track.
Do you have to have a roll cage for road racing?
You got to have a full roll cage.
Okay. When did you switch from a non-roll cage car to a roll cage?
When I went from doing the regular track event, the
Right.
DE event, to actually wheel-to-wheel racing.
Right.
You're not allowed to use a regular car to go wheel-to-wheel racing.
Right.
You got to have.
Can it be street legal, or is it that's just impossible at that point?
It's very hard. Like now, you're talking about essentially riding in a brick.
Right,
Because
right.
the cars are so stiff. Like you'll feel if you run over a penny,
Right.
you're gonna feel it in your stomach.
Yeah, some of the
Cars are
high end,
so
like
stiff.
some of the high end exotics, people have complained about that in
They're so stiff.
reviews. They're just like they're completely undrivable because they're so
They are,
uncomfortable.
unless you live in Florida where the highways are always nice and smooth.
Right.
In New York, it's not happening. But when I first started,
Your whole car could get swallowed into some of those potholes.
but when I first started, I didn't have money to buy a truck. I didn't have money to buy a trailer, so I used to drive the race car to the track. I used to
Right.
put plates and just drive it to the track. And if I didn't make it, if I crashed or the car broke down, then it was an issue. I had to fix it so I could make it home.
Right.
But like I said, it gets very expensive.
That's how you get to know people, right? You made some friends.
A lot of friends. It's a lot of like, can you please take me back home because
how-
my car broke down?
How big a toolbox can you fit?
Exactly.
How big a toolbox can you fit in the tiny little Nissan? You know.
Well, so I got rid of the Nissan, then I started racing RX-7s. Then after that, we switched to Volkswagens. That didn't last that long because the cars just were horrible as race cars.
Right.
And then from that point, we moved into BMW.
Was that a mistake, or was it just a fad, or how that happen?
BMW was a car to have, but back then, those cars were very expensive to purchase,
Coffee?
and then no, thank you.
Okay.
And then to start doing things to them. So it made it wasn't something that I could afford.
Right.
But then fast forward a few years later, those cars became more affordable, and it was already a proven formula on those cars. So you could just pick up the phone, get parts, and that's it. You were out racing, and you were out on the front.
So you're always looking for the formula from the other guy to see what he's doing. People are kind of
To
like
a
stealing
point.
from each other.
I've never been that person that monkey see, monkey do.
Right.
I've always gone all the way. Where
Oh, okay.
So the type of racing that I was doing for a long time, it was a power to weight ratio class. So you were allowed to have X Y amount of horsepower.
Oh,
pound.
okay. So you're
And-
kind of caged. You can only go.
Exactly.
So that's actually people may not realize this, but that's actually kind of normal, even with street cars. There was a big thing with the Dodge Demon. You know, this is kind of like, you know, a little lowbrow, but you probably if you don't know this, it's awesome. So Chrysler actually came out with the Dodge Demon, which was the first sub 10-second car out of the showroom.
Out of the showroom.
So literally, it's illegal to race on the track because if
It's too fast.
It's too fast.
It doesn't come with a roll cage, and it doesn't come with a parachute.
Right. So you have to install
So-
that stuff to bring on the track. So you have to feather the throttle a little bit when you qualify to even get into the event. You can't
Exactly.
actually bring it up to full potential.
Well, they actually banned that car.
Oh, they banned it?
Yeah.
Ah!
Before the car was
Oops.
released. Yeah. Because the car was too fast.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's all about safety.
Right.
You know, back in the day, a 10-second car was like, oh my God, you have a 10-second car.
I mean, the
But now-
Marauders 13 seconds, and I feel like my life is flashing before my eyes. on the
Exactly.
track.
But now you could buy a car out of the box that goes 8 seconds. Imagine that.
What car? What goes 8 seconds?
Well, under 10 seconds. Isn't that that Hellcat does?
The Hellcat's just under 10.
Well,
So
it's
yeah.
Now you're crossing the quarter mile at what, 150 miles an hour?
Like if someone wanted to just go into a showroom and buy a car that's just going to knock their socks off, is there any other than the Demon that's going to be like that? Like what would you recommend for people? If they just want to just get a taste for this and they don't want to spend a lot of time or risk, you know, not dump $1 million in instead of just buy a
The
car and
problem
try
is that you're not going to find a car that will go as fast as that car without you actually doing
Right.
things to the car.
Maybe the next version of the Tesla, you never know. So Teslas are fast; they're pretty close.
They're extremely fast, but are they fun?
Well, I don't know. All right, just the speed alone.
0 to 60 that quickly is pretty fun.
I mean,
It is, but what about the
ludicrous-
sound? What about the sound?
Oh yeah, excuse me. I made a noise like a shifting gear, and a Tesla would just be.
There's no shifting.
Yeah, there's no shifting.
It's an electric
Yeah,
motor.
it was just the first Tesla that shifted. Yeah, that's crazy. I hadn't really thought about that, but yeah, I thought about getting a Tesla, but I was like, yeah, you know, it's just not as, you know, well, for one thing, it's not as tunable because Tesla has everything locked down.
Correct.
And this is one of the problems. This is something that happens all the time in computers. I mean, probably the thing you're most familiar with is digital rights management is printers. Like, especially in the late 90s to early 2010s, the printer companies would have these chips on the printer inks, and for some printers, inks you couldn't buy aftermarket inks; they wouldn't work. And it wasn't that it was impossible to design one that would work aftermarket. It's that they put a chip on it with an encryption key to stop you from buying aftermarket ink. You know?
What's happening now with all these cars, like GM, if you buy a brand new Vet or if you buy a brand new Duramax or anything like that, you can't tune them. The computers are locked. So
Right.
if you want to tune them, you actually have to replace it. There's a company.
Well, wait a minute. So that was always the case, right? I mean, you could tune them a little, but you couldn't really tune. Most cars ship with an ECU and software programmed into the ECU, and then after that, you know, you could maybe set a few variables in it, but you can't really. You couldn't like put a supercharger on it because the specs are completely different.
You actually could.
Okay, so how
You
would
could actually rewrite the whole.
So
program.
I know of two ways, right? So the one I'm playing devil's advocate here. So you know, one is that you can drop a chip in there, and the other one is like a physical chip, like just take the ECU out and put a new chip in.
That's actually back in the day.
That was back in the day.
That's back in the day.
That was back. This is pre-CAN bus. This is
Correct.
just. So there was you know, cars have had computers since the mid '90s for sure because OBD2 was standardized then.
OBD1 and OBD2. Any car that it's fuel injected has a computer.
Yeah, well,
So once the cars
there were some '60s cars, but yeah, most of them. Most of the cars you would know.
we're talking about, you know,
Right.
late 80s, 90s, any car that came fuel injected, it actually had a computer.
Right.
Now, well, those computers, those are the ones that you actually had to chip and you replace it.
Right.
Newer cars, you could just flash them.
Well, that's just, and the key there is that the only computer in the car, except maybe the one in the radio, is the ECU. And
Now-
you're basically just replacing the whole ECU.
Not anymore.
Right.
Now every cars have over 50 computers. Everything is a computer. Like
Right.
BMWs, Mercedes, the headlight itself, it's a computer.
Do you like computers, or do you hate them?
It's made my job and our job and my industry miserable.
Really?
Because we have to spend so much money just to buy the equipment, just to be able to communicate with these cars and be able to work on these cars.
Right,
If you
right.
don't have it, then you're done.
So there's a huge wall blocking other people from getting into the industry. Like if you want to become a mechanic and run an independent shop and have people just drive random cars in there, even semi-random, like a performance shop, which you expect only these cars, not those cars.
Correct.
Yeah, but yeah, so and
Some cars nowadays, even just to do a brake job,
there's a barrier to entry.
if you don't have the correct computer, you can't do the brake job.
What?
So,
That's new to me. I actually don't know that.
so you know the old school e-brake handle?
Yeah.
Most
the
cars-
spin out handle.
Most cars don't have that nowadays. It's a button.
Right.
So
It's a
so the caliper itself is actually electronic. You have a motor on the caliper.
Mm-hmm.
You press a button inside the car, and it presses the piston out, and that's your e-brake. So
Right.
in order for you to do a brake job on these cars,
Mm-hmm.
you have to hook up a computer to deactivate that system and retract the piston on the caliper to
Mm-hmm.
go back in. And then like Volkswagens and Audis, you actually have to measure the brake pad, the thickness of it, and then punch the numbers in. So when the caliper goes back in, it goes back to the right amount, and it's not pushing.
Because it'll throw an error otherwise.
Correct.
Oh, that's crazy.
So if you don't have this, then you can't work on the cars.
That's crazy. I mean, all right. So let's get away from secondary consequences for the rest of the world, not the manufacturer.
Okay.
I can kind of see why they would do it. I mean, all right. I can imagine why they would do it because there's an advantage if you're the computer and you could write an algorithm in the program to watch to see if there was a sudden shift in the caliper travel. So that might tell you, say, a piece of the brake pad broke off. Oh crap! The actual pad broke off the backing plate on the brake pad. You have a problem. You need to go to a dealer. But how often does that happen? I mean, I think it happened. I've heard of it once ever.
I haven't seen it happen yet.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
It's just, things just get more complicated and more complicated and more complicated. And a lot of the things are completely unnecessary.
Right. Is it that people that don't? Is it that people that don't know what they're doing with cars are actually making the decisions about
just seems
what things you have to watch?
It's just-
not realizing what's actually dangerous.
To me, it just seems like the whoever's designing the cars, it's more of a competition of like, look, we have the cool shit. You don't have
Right.
this. And now, just like when they started with the LED daytime running lights, I believe it was Audi, the one that started. Now every car has them, just for the looks.
Right.
Now
They do look nice.
They do.
They look nice.
But
I'll
if
admit
I'm
it.
not mistaken, I believe it was Audi and Volkswagen the ones that started also with the electronic e-brakes. Now everybody has them.
Right. Is this just people going to dealerships and just being like, oh yeah, this has a longer feature list than the other car, I like it better. You know, like the Escalade. You know, like GM was good with like having a pile of features.
That's basically what it is.
Yeah.
You know, the cars are just
It's a dick
beyond
contest, isn't it?
It is. But the funny thing, like if you look at the cars the way they're built, they make it almost impossible for you to service them. So like whoever freaking invented these things, like they didn't think about that you needed to service, you needed to work on the car, so they just make everything so complicated for no reason. But it just seems like it's their way of trying to get rid of the little guys, the little mom and pop shops, and to push you to go back to the
Shade
dealership.
tree mechanic.
Exactly.
Why is the shade tree mechanic so hated? What do you think's going on
I
there?
have no idea.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
What is it? Is it just like that people are just annoyed when they get schooled by a sleeper? I mean, is it? I mean, to me, the Marauder is asleep. Now it stands out because it looks different. But there was a time when there were a lot of Grand Marquis and Crown Vics on the road when it just totally blended.
Yeah.
Nobody saw it coming. More than a few times I got people, and some people are good sports and they're like, that was awesome, and some people are like, you asshole. And they're mad because you got them. They thought you were driving a piece of shit, and then you beat them, and now they're embarrassed. Is that what it is? Is it just like people want cars to be predictable so that no one can get beaten in a street race? Is it that? Are people that pathetic? I
don't think that's the case. I think it comes down to more.
It becomes like a caste system where you're in your caste of the car that you have, and it can't do anything unexpected.
I think that the reason why most cars are shifting into all this extra technology of unnecessary things is to try to monopolize what's actually who could work on the cars.
Right. Oh, it's a money grab. It has nothing to do with the consumer at all.
Exactly.
Right. So the counter argument to that, of course, would be that the consumers are driving it. They want more features, and I mean some of the features are good. Like in particular, the one feature that really attracts me is not braking assist, but actual autonomous braking technology, where it actually stops the car. So in other words, if you're zoned, if you're exhausted, if you have a heart attack behind the wheel, you don't kill a pedestrian. Which is particularly interesting in New York. But to me, that is the one automated feature that I really care about. I don't really care about blind spot monitoring. I don't care about zone keep. A lane keep, lane assist. I don't care about auto parking. I mean, to me, I don't see what the virtues of these things are. Having skill as a driver, it's almost offensive. It's like,
but that's the problem.
Right.
Now you have all these people driving all these cars with all these aids that help you do all these things, and now when those things don't work, they can't drive the car.
Right.
We see it all the time. That we have customers coming to the shop. They're like, "Oh my God, my backup camera is not working. I can't drive the car." It happens a lot more than you think.
No, I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh at them.
I know, but it's
no, but I totally get it because they get to the use of the zone where they have all these inputs, and it stops being, listen for next to you. Subconsciously, you listen for the beep 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 beep, and if you don't hear the beep 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 beep, the car ain't next to you, and you slam into them.
But it becomes one of those things that, like, you're driving, but you're not really paying attention to what you're doing. You're relying on the car to do everything for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. Well, we know where this ends. This ends with penis. So, we had porn. We had the people shooting a porn in a Tesla. So, I brought that up for like 3 weeks on the show.
It took
really
them a long time to do it, if you think about it.
Yeah, time to porn was very slow on Tesla. Time to penis. So, it took a long time for them to. Well, now they have. They just openly sell them on Amazon. Of course, they openly sell a lot of things on Amazon. But Tesla has sensors in the steering wheel, and if you take your hands off the wheel, it will say, put your hands back on the wheel. I'm auto driving, but you need to be attentive.
Exactly.
But I mean, all it is just a pressure sensor. So of
Correct.
course people figured out how to bypass it. They just put a little latch on a little loop on it, and then the
But what
steering
is
wheel's
that?
happy.
It's insane.
So I mean, so what do you think about self-driving cars?
I'm not a fan of them
You're not a fan,
because I'm a driver. I love driving.
right?
To me, it's like
When you wanted to sleep on the way to work, or
No.
read the paper,
no.
or like some of the self-driving cars, like the prototypes they have at the car shows, where the seats are facing each other, so that people can
It
talk.
seems cool, but I'm the type of person that I like to feel in control of what I'm doing. So now
Right.
I could race a car and get into a corner at 130, 140 miles an hour without even worrying about it.
Right.
You can't get me in a fucking roller coaster
Right.
because I'm not in control of it.
Yeah, I understand that. Yep.
I don't mind the G loads and any of the stuff. The fact that I don't feel like I'm in control of it, I just won't do it.
Well, probably because you understand it. I mean, if you're on a wooden roller coaster, you don't really know how.
And I
that thing's
also understand that
maintained.
they don't really check those things all the time.
Yeah. But you know exactly what you did in your pre-flight check.
Exactly.
Before you got in your car. You check the tires, you check the brakes, you check the brake fluid,
I
you
make
check
sure,
the
I make sure
oil.
that everything is set. Make sure that nothing's going to fall off the car.
You ran it. You might even have plugged your laptop in and did 30 different sections. Yeah, you do a physical inspection, make sure nothing's loose. Even putting your
I'm not
fingers on bolts and.
I'm not dependent on somebody that is making $8 an hour and that they hate their job.
Right.
And they don't
Well,
really
it's
know what
15
they're
now. That's the minimum wage.
doing. Well, whatever it is.
Yeah. No, they just changed it. So next year, New York State. So we're in New York State. If you don't know for some reason, but we're in New York, and New York State has mandated a $15 an hour minimum wage for. Next year for small businesses, and large businesses it's this year. So actually there was a whole bunch of hubbub in the papers when a lot of restaurants had to lay people off, because of course that's where the $8 an hour people were. I think it was $9.60 was so it's a jump from $9.60. Is that going to affect? I assume you guys are doing better than that or close.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good. All right,
We
so
are,
that doesn't
but still,
affect you.
when there's when something like that is mandated on you,
Yeah, it's not great for the economy.
it's not. But if you look at what McDonald's and all these other companies are doing in response to that, now you could go to McDonald's, go to a computer, and order your food.
Well, it's completely, everything's becoming even more automated every year. I mean, all right, so I work in computers. I can tell you, I have replaced people with scripts. I have replaced people with programs. The automation labor glut is real.
Yeah.
I don't love everything about him, but Yang is right about this. He's absolutely right. It may not, you can argue that it isn't catastrophic yet, but I mean, all you have to do now is a little dangerous extrapolating trends, but if you extrapolate the trend, we're in trouble, man. I mean, there's not going to be enough.
Well, think about it. You go
40 hours a week. There's not going to be enough work going around.
look about it. You go to Stop and Shop,
Right.
and you could just go to an automated machine and pay for all your things and
Right.
not actually see somebody.
Right. Yeah.
How many people lost their jobs because of it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, did you hear about the latest thing in Stop and Shop?
No.
Oh, this
Oh,
is
you see that
great.
machine that moves around? Have you seen that thing?
Yeah, the
It's like
giant robot.
The giant.
Yeah.
I went to buy milk for my kids the other day.
Oh, you saw it.
And I'm walking, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" Like, it scared the shit out of me. And I was like, "What is this?" And I'm like, and obviously, I didn't know what it was.
A friend of mine posted a video a couple weeks ago. He made sure to put the shopping cart between him and it. It was like, what?
But what is it for?
It's actually a spill detector. So the reason it's so tall is because they want the angle for the cameras, and they need the cameras up at that height so they can have the angle. I mean, this is what they say. Who knows what it really is doing, right? I mean, you can put anything inside that chassis, but supposedly it's just wandering around looking for broken bottles on the floor. And if it finds one, it alerts. It sends a signal up to the front, and it just sits there and basically guards it.
Why not just pay somebody just walk the fucking?
Apparently, they don't do it. They're not any good at it. It's just too tedious.
How much money to spend on that?
You know what? I mean, so years and years and years ago, I worked at a Path Market, it's like an age ago, and they had these little computers that they would put on the front of the shopping carts, and they had directories in them, and you could search for anything, like you could in a web browser, for instance,
Okay.
and it would tell you what aisle the thing was in. So
That's actually pretty smart.
it was pretty smart, and but at the same time, was it worth the money? Probably not.
That's why they don't have it anymore.
Yeah, that's why I don't have it anymore. That's why you're shocked to even hear about it. You never heard of it before.
Never even saw it.
Yeah, that's smart cards. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's more worth it because it's people would smash them for fun. Every day you'd find another one smashed. Someone hit it with a car. Hit it with a pipe or something when no one was looking. That was back when security cameras weren't so ubiquitous; they weren't everywhere. So
that doesn't happen anymore. There's cameras everywhere.
How about I'm just gonna use your knowledge of your shop. Your customers, how many of them have traffic cameras in their cars now?
I'm starting to see it a lot more.
Yeah.
Like you get in the car, it's like you turn the car on, it's a camera on and whatever.
Right.
And
well, some of them have them integrated now. Some manufacturers are integrating.
They do it, I think, for a lot of, that started happening a lot in overseas for insurance fraud.
Right.
That was like big on that. I think in Russia.
Oh, there's tons of Russian videos out there.
I love watching those things.
Me too. I'm up 3 in the morning just watching trucks spit out in the snow.
My wife will tell me, it's like, can you just put your fucking phone away and go to sleep? I was like, no, these things are fucking addicted.
You come home and you look at cars.
Yeah. That's funny. My son, I have a 3.5-year-old son.
Yeah.
He actually has a very rare condition, but he doesn't play with toys. Mm-hmm. All he wants to do is watch car reviews on YouTube.
Really?
And then he'll get on my truck and he'll be like, Daddy, these are your cup holders. Daddy, this is your turn signals. Like he'll start repeating what he hears on the fucking car reviews. He doesn't even talk about cars or toys or anything like that.
That's crazy.
He's just beyond obsessed with cars.
Wow. Is he on the spectrum, or I don't know if you want to talk about this.
No, he so he has something called optic nerve hypoplasia.
Okay.
Which means your optic nerve it's smaller than it's supposed to, and the nerves that go to the back of the brain, you don't have the right amount.
Oh.
When he was born and we didn't know that he had that. He was diagnosed at 6 weeks. We started noticing that there was no eye contact. We started noticing that he was always kind of looking at the ceiling. It just felt odd. And we kept asking the doctors. The doctors, oh, you guys are crazy. He's fine. But he wasn't.
Okay.
So we ended up going to my wife found a eye doctor for babies, and he was diagnosed at 6 weeks. We were told there was only 1,400 cases in the U.S.
Wow.
And there's
1,400 cases? That's 330 million people. That's crazy.
And no case is exactly the same.
That's like 1 in 100,000 or worse.
Some kids will have it in one eye. Some kids will have it in both eyes. Some kids actually have the condition, but they could actually see. My son, when he was diagnosed, he was only light sensitive.
Okay.
He couldn't see anything. Then we did research, and it turns out there was only one doctor that actually did research on what he has, and actually that's all he does, and he's in LA. So his doctor is in LA, so we constantly travel there to have him checked and so on.
Wow, that's crazy. So you have to fly to LA? How often do you have to fly there?
At least once a year.
Please don't leave. Don't leave me alone with all these terrible mechanics in New York. Oh my God, no.
Before we knew when we thought it was like really bad, we actually considered moving there.
Right.
But it's he's exceeded every expectation.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so
is there like therapy? Is he improving or?
So what he has it doesn't get worse.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, the optic nerve is like a muscle. If you work at it very hard, it tends to work better. So let's say if you're supposed to have 1 million nerves that connect to the brain, and if he has 100,000, if you make the 100,000 nerves stronger than they're supposed to be, he could actually see better. So we don't know how much he could see, but we know that he could actually see something.
Okay.
There is no eye contact with him.
No.
If he wants to look at you, like he kind of looks on the side, but it's not like he walks around the house and he crashes into things, he's getting better. We're waiting for technology to get better.
Right. It will. It totally will.
Exactly. So
I used to work at a genetics lab. The stuff that's coming is crazy.
So one of the things that they're trying in Germany, they're actually trying to do stem cell treatments, which people say that it works, some people say that it doesn't work. If you ask any doctor here in the U.S., they'll say that it doesn't work.
Right.
So we're just...
Well, how would they even know?
They say that they've done tests.
It's funny. Someone's got a rice rocket in the parking lot out there.
So doctors here, well, what we've seen, every time you talk about stem cell research or stem cell treatments and all that stuff, they always kind of just shut you down right away.
Right.
And we realized that those questions you got to ask when you're somewhere else.
Don't worry, I'm receptive to this. I think that the thing that's a lot of it had to do with the cultivation techniques in the early days of stem cells, and there were ethical questions there, but stem cells themselves are not unethical, and they're completely obtainable in an ethical fashion. It's just stigma and momentum at this point. It's like marijuana in 1972 or something. Like what? Why is this illegal? 40 years later, finally people are coming around. But
it's still illegal in some places somehow.
Yeah, well, it's still illegal here. It's just now it's decriminalized, right? So you don't go to jail; you just get a ticket.
Exactly.
But
so so he's I don't even know how we got into the conversation of that, but either way, he's improved and he's a happy little boy, but he's obsessed with cars.
Right.
He doesn't look at toys.
So I didn't mean to drag you in there.
No, that's
really interesting, and actually maybe it'll help raise awareness. And if someone else knows someone, you might just save them a whole huge hassle. I know where to look now. It's the guy in LA.
We thought it was going to be horrible. Obviously, we were devastated. It was my first kid. Me as a car guy, as a racer.
How many kids you got?
I have 2 kids.
2 kids.
I have 2 boys.
Yep, me too.
And it was my first kid, and I'm thinking I'm going to put him in a go-kart. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go racing with him. And when he got diagnosed, I was devastated. I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to have that with my kid. But
don't worry, all kids devastate you.
But fast forward.
They would have come anyway.
Fast forward 3.5 years, and he's excelled on everything that they told us he was never going to do. He's doing it, and he's a happy little boy, and he's obsessed with cars. And I wouldn't be surprised if he actually races cars.
Nice. That's great. Yeah. I'm so glad that you guys got ahead of it and beat it. And
I'm
sorry, I didn't mean to drag you into that.
No, we've been very proactive about it. We've done a lot of research. My wife has done an amazing job on staying on top of things and all the therapies that he gets and all the stuff, and he's doing amazing.
All right. Awesome. Cool. So I wanted to ask you what was the best what's the best track for road racing that you've been on? That's around here, around the northeast area. Obviously not.
To me, around here it'll have to be Watkins Glen, which is upstate New York.
Okay.
It's one of those tracks where it separates the men from the boys.
Really? How is that?
The track itself is extreme.
Is it because it's snowy?
No, the track itself has a lot of elevation changes.
Yeah.
It's extremely fast. It's one of the fastest tracks in North America. And it's surrounded by guardrails. So you have pavement, you have about 3 to...
You can't even spin out and ask for
You have about 3 feet, maybe 4 feet, and then you have a guardrail.
Wow.
Both ends of it.
Wow.
So there is no room for mistakes.
Wow, you don't even get your your outer tire off the road before you hit the guardrail.
If you touch the grass, then you're going for a ride. It's a very challenging and balls out type of track. You could go there and drive like a bitch.
Right.
But it's not going to be fun.
Well, probably not.
It's not going to be fun. And
unless you brought a lemon, maybe.
It takes a lot of commitment to go fast around that place.
Wow.
And that's why I said it separates the men from the boys.
Wow.
So
that's really cool. Awesome. So
I was petrified of that place the first time I went there.
That wasn't your first track though, right?
No, my first track was actually Pocono Raceway.
Okay. And so is Pocono Raceway nearly as good or not quite?
No.
Not even close. Okay.
It's like comparing apples and oranges.
Okay.
Pocono Raceway, it's essentially an oval where they made a couple of turns in the infield, and
it's a series of left turns or right turns.
Correct.
Depending which direction.
It's not an actual. There is no. It's not technical.
Right.
You don't have to be a rocket scientist to go fast. You don't even need bowls to go fast around that place.
Right.
But there's other tracks that are closed on the northeast area. There's no tracks in Long Island. There was one, Bridgehampton, which they closed it down.
I know, what the fuck, man?
They closed like 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and now it's a golf course. Horrible. What the fuck were you thinking?
Well, there's that one in Englishtown, right?
They closed that down already.
Yeah, I know.
They made that track.
I've been to that track, but they've closed it down
They
since.
made that track thinking they were going to get road course guys going in there, but the layout was so stupid and so narrow that it just became a go-kart track.
Wow.
it wasn't safe for cars.
Right.
But then you have Lime Rock, Connecticut. There's a track that's been around for a long time. It's an amazing place. It's very small.
But wait, so like I'm more into quarter mile racing just because I like it because I tend to, it's not as challenging, but I tend to just use as a gauge of the performance of cars.
Okay.
Not really. You don't get the whole car. You don't get a holistic view of the car, but at least you get an idea of how fast it can start and go.
Correct.
Start and stop. Right. So, I mean, is there any quarter mile racetracks around here at all? I mean,
No.
No.
Well, they actually just closed completely English Town.
What the fuck is wrong with?
And then you have.
Why don't we have a quarter mile racetrack?
I think the closest one is Atco.
I mean,
it's in
because-
Jersey,
Yeah.
and it's probably around 3 hours away from here.
Shit, man. It's crazy because I mean, like you would think from this conversation that everybody's driving around in like Toyota Celicas, and like just driving around in 4-cylinder econo cars and Priuses, and it's not.
Yeah.
People have crazy GT500s, custom cars. I mean, just piles of performance cars on Long Island. If you go down to Captree on a Sunday, it is bonkers. I mean, exotics too.
But if you think about it, even
Where the hell do they fucking drive them?
even a Honda Civic now will come to close to 300 horsepower.
Right.
A Honda Civic.
Well, so my sister-in-law's gonna hate me for this, but she had a Porsche. She had
Okay.
the slowest Porsche. She had
Boxster?
the 944.
Oh my God, you can't even call that a Porsche.
Yeah, you can't really call it a Porsche. So I actually convinced her to get rid of it finally because I said, I think it was in 2012 or 2013, I said, the base Focus is faster than this car this year.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So when the base Focus is faster than your car, probably it's not a performance
Time
car
to
anymore.
go.
It's
Yeah.
time to go.
Time to go. It's like buying a Mazda Miata.
It's like the nameplate, I think.
It's like buying a
Anyway,
Miata.
it wasn't ugly, but whatever. Anyway, so yeah, I just I don't really
They've been trying.
I don't really understand how the weather's on a track. I mean, like people act shocked when people street race, and sometimes there's real consequences. Sometimes people die and people get really hurt. But I mean, like, why are you shocked? There's no track. I mean, the first thing you do when people are displaying a behavior you don't like and they're begging for something is you give it to them. I mean, you just give it to them in a way that's sane.
Funny that you say that. Back in my country, in Colombia, one of the ways they stopped a lot of the street racing at night, they open up a track, which is probably a 30-minute drive, 45-minute drive from the capital, that it's open every single day at night. So people, instead of racing on the streets, they go to the track, they have fun in a safely manner.
And if they don't, if they crash, they just take themselves out and not whoever's around.
Exactly.
Right.
And it stopped a lot of accidents and deaths and all that stuff.
That's great.
To me, it surprises me that at least
are we so backwards?
Long Island needs to have a drag race.
I mean, it's a long, flat island, people. We can't have
Just
we
open
can't do
something
one
up.
track
But the
somewhere.
problem is
There's still
people are gonna-
farms out east.
People are still they're gonna start complaining about noise. That's one of the reasons why
Oh, it's NIMBY. That's what it is. Not my
it's just
backyard.
Politics.
This is
That's what it
politics.
comes down to.
Fucking bullshit, man. Yeah, this is real. I don't get it. We have all other kinds of sports. How many golf courses do we have? We can't have one track. Give me a break. Yeah. All right. So. So I was kind of curious. I know you said you weren't thrilled about self-driving cars. I actually have some good news for you on that, which is that from an algorithmic point of view, from a computer geek kind of point of view, it's pretty obvious. Like, the simpler problem is trains, right? If you're looking at, trying to make some kind of vehicle self-driving, right? Airplanes is probably the most complex case, and then the next most complex case would be like motorcycles, and the next one would be cars, and the next one would be trains. Trains are not automated at all.
But planes are.
Well, planes have automatic subsystems, but they still have at least two pilots in every commercial plane.
Yes. But I actually have a friend, one of my best friends. He's a pilot. All they do is take off, autopilot. They don't do anything until they land. They don't do anything.
Well, yeah, but it's not. So, in fairness, it's not because they can't. It's not because that pilot doesn't know how to fly the plane. That's the easy part.
Yeah.
It's because they don't. Because there's no reason for it. you know, they don't want to do it because they don't want to invoke liability, right?
Okay.
They don't, you know what I'm saying? You know, I'm sure that that's a regulation coming from insurance companies.
Okay.
You know, because they can do it that way, and because the autopilot system is predictable. You know, leave it on unless there's a problem. I'm sure is the rule.
Okay.
So, yeah, but the harder case is landing and taking off, right? So when they do that, then I'll say, yeah, okay, planes are automated, but they're not doing that yet.
I'm sure not.
So, but trains are the simplest case because, right, most roadways are intersections. That's where traffic comes from, right? Cars pile up behind each other, and this is the case the computer geeks are making. I've watched the videos on it and read the paper, and you know, and whenever you get an intersection here. And this is probably not the best, but you know, when somebody has to stop at an intersection, everybody else stops behind them, and then you kind of get this rolling backup of cars behind them.
Okay.
The intersection becomes a ghost intersection and moves backwards to the traffic, and cars have to stop at an intersection that isn't even there. So all someone has to do is see a leaf, freak out, hit the brakes, and that just slowed down all traffic going in that direction. I mean, this is life in New York, right?
Which happens every single time.
It happens every single time, right? And the argument is that if you do automated cars, that you solve this problem because you get less ghost leafs, and the cars know how to slowly ease out without having to, because they have quicker reaction times. They don't need to leave that space for the reaction time. That space, the removal of that space perpetuates itself backwards to the line. But so if this is really the problem, then trains are actually simpler because there's no ghost intersections, right?
No.
So why the hell don't we have automated trains? So to me, I can't take automated cars seriously until we get automated trains. When we start seeing trains without drivers, or with a driver who just sits there with his hands folded waiting, then I'll believe it.
I think there's more to it than just having all these automated cars out there and self-driving cars.
Where do you think they're doing that? What do you think? Where's the push coming from? Is there do you have a conspiracy theory about it, or?
No, it's just,
I love conspiracy theories. So.
Me too, but I just don't see it happening anytime soon. Mm-hmm. You know.
I think it will get there. I think in 10 years you're going to start seeing truckers getting laid off.
You're gonna need more than that.
But a lot of people were predicting it was going to be next year, and I'm like, bullshit. Because it can't just be better than the truckers. It has to be like an order of magnitude better. Because every time, if your Google truck crashes into a school bus and kills someone, you know, they're going to sue Google.
But for this to work,
yeah,
the roads have to be better. People, you still have the human factor of the people just driving regular cars.
Right.
And that's something that's going to be more than 10 years before you actually get rid of actual humans driving the cars.
Right. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I love driving. I love
driving too.
I have 1 million miles on me. You know, so to me,
I drive 30 to 50,000 miles a year.
My 1 million miles is a sunk cost. I've already invested that,
yep.
Right? So, I don't want this to happen because, I mean, you know, it's bad. I'm good enough that I can usually prevent other people's accidents from involving me. You know, I can swerve around it or get out of the way in time, and you know, I stop, I see it coming, I'm like, oh god, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. You know, but
exactly.
that's not everyone is got that cost. So to them,
well, to them, they rely on the
or that
car.
skill.
They rely on the car. They rely on the blind spot monitor. They rely on all these things. When you and myself, we don't rely on any of these fucking things.
Right.
We don't need any of these things to actually know the possibility of an accident happening, and you reacting to it before it actually happens.
I avoided anti-lock brakes for 15 years. On purpose, you know. I don't even want to deal with it because I've come around, but you know.
I love them on the track.
Oh yeah, they're pretty. You know, because I know how to pump the brakes, and actually, you can kick the rear of a car out if you hit the brake. If you lock the brakes, and
if you do it the right way,
if you do it the right way,
yeah.
You know, and then you can't do it with the anti-lock brakes. That's no fun.
It's not. Even if you tried, it's not.
So actually, I got a funny story about this. So I had a '66 Impala, and I did an engine swap on it, and I actually I had a 305. It was a straight six. I had no money, so I had a straight six in there. It died, and I put a 305 from a 76 in there.
Okay.
And it wasn't awesome, but it was pretty good. And I actually swapped the master cylinder too. Well, and the car that the master cylinder came from was had front wheel discs, so it had a proportioning valve in the front. So. And I realized what happened early on, and I said, yeah, screw it, I'll leave it. So it would put more pressure, and it was four-wheel drums, so it would put more pressure on the back wheels. Mm-hmm. So I could lock my back wheels up before my front wheels on purpose. So whenever somebody was driving like a jerk and they cut me off, even though I completely control the vehicle, you see them like, oh my God, get out of my way, and they keep going.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, like at first I was like, oh man, I screwed up, and I'm like, nah, I think I'm gonna leave it in. So
it's pretty funny.
Happy accident. So do you have any stories like that? Like, is there something like with like some mod that you did on a car that you had unexpected benefits, and you're like, I'm keeping this?
I've always been very proactive as far as whatever mods I made to my cars. It was always about just going fast.
Right.
And back when I was younger, that's how I drove all the time, and it got me in a lot of trouble.
So you're probably not going to be building like an old school rat rod or something like that, because you're not going to be able to get the kind of holistic performance out of it.
No. That's not me.
You're not going to be building a 55
I love
Bel
the
Air.
cars. I love the cars. I love seeing them. I don't see myself ever owning one of those cars.
Right. So you could work on it with love, but you wouldn't want to own it.
I love working on those cars.
You wave goodbye at the end of the day, and then you're done with it.
Exactly. Like those are the cars that you take extra pride in working on, because there's no they're simple, but they're not at the same time. Because if you don't know what you're doing, obviously.
Yeah.
How many mechanics nowadays do you know that actually know anything about carburetors?
Right. Yeah.
Or drum brakes.
Yeah, drum brakes. Exactly.
It's something simple as that, but
yeah, drum brakes. If you don't know, drum brakes are illegal to put on new cars now. So they've been.
They're not. They're actually
from 2016 on. It has to be four-wheel discs on all American.
There are some new cars. I believe it's Toyota Tundra or some of this.
Oh, there may be a truck that may be different for trucks.
They come with drum brakes in the back. Talking about cars.
Yeah. Cars must be four-wheel disc now.
Yeah,
they changed the
that.
regulations. But but of course you still got trucks, stuff like trailers and things like that. You still got drum brakes, and of course
but they're electric.
The emergency brakes are also usually drum brakes inside of the rotor.
Or some cars actually use an extra caliper. Like exotic cars, they will use an extra caliper just for the e-brake.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Yeah. So, I guess I'm not highbrow enough. I need fancier cars. Yeah. So that's kind of a bummer what you're telling me about the brake job and needing some of the fancier cars that require that you have the computer just to back the calipers off.
Yeah.
So what brand of car do you have the most equipment just to do routine stuff on? Not talking performance, but just
German cars.
In
general, you're talking about Mercedes, BMW.
They're the most bells and whistles, the most features.
They're the most complicated cars to work on.
Mm-hmm. But you'll do them. You'll still take them.
A lot of mechanics are actually afraid of working on those cars.
Do you guys charge more per hour for those, or
no?
Okay.
I should.
Oh, sorry.
But I don't.
Yeah. Oh, you should, really?
I should.
Do other shops do that, or?
Yeah, there's a lot of different shops.
I know. I've seen a lot of exotic cars. Exotic auto repair shops.
A lot of cars will charge more. A lot of shops will charge more to work on those cars. I don't.
Right.
I actually, my expertise and what I focus on mostly is German cars.
So I know that, like in Mercedes in particular, late 80s, early 90s, back when American cars were kind of clunkier and still having reliability issues from all the way, from the mid 70s on. There was that big stretch of Chevy Eurosport world, Chrysler, what was the K car world.
But they're still nowhere near as good as they should.
Yeah. But like the Mercedes back then were really amazing. They were just, especially Mercedes diesel. Oh my God! You get your hands on a C-Class Mercedes
C-Class
diesel.
and E-Class diesels.
Yeah.
They were great.
Yeah, they were
back
really-
then. Now,
Well, now it's a nightmare. So that's a real change for them, right? They went from using all that engineering knowledge to build a really rock solid car with a normal-ish amount of features to just building a computer with an engine in it.
correct.
Well, a network of computers with an engine in
They
it.
have so many computers. It's insane.
Does anybody go to school for CAN bus technologies, or is it per brand, or?
So we try to do.
I mean, so for people who don't know, the CAN bus is a network that's used inside of it. Sometimes, I think some cars will have 2 of them, but I don't think it's ever more than 2. And the computers in your car used to talk to each other.
Correct.
too.
It's
Yeah.
just like a network in an office.
Right.
But then what happens is when one of those computers stops communicating, it affects the whole car.
Right.
And the car doesn't know what to do because it's not closing the loop.
Right. So they're roughly token ring networks. So if you're a computer, we have a lot of computer listeners.
Okay.
So if you're a computer guy and you know what token ring is, it's old. It's been around. So it was brought over from a manufacturing world. So it's not like an Ethernet network where you have like a switch or a router in the center of a bunch of other computers,
No.
and it goes through there and it just keeps a table of where everything is and sends it out the right port. It just, everything talks to the next thing on the
Correct.
And so if you pull something out of the network, or something gets pulled out by like an accident,
It shuts everything down.
it just freaks out. It's like, oh my God, I'm missing a wheel, or my headlight's missing, or
Correct.
Yeah.
And you start getting a bunch of lights on the car, and then the car will go into limp modes and so on and so forth just to protect itself.
Is there any brand that's better about letting you have workarounds so that at least you can use the thing while it's in this kind of limp mode, or
No.
no?
They're all-
They all suck. No.
No. They're all, once it starts failing or something goes
Like
bad.
if you were trying to if someone was like, man, I hate all these bells and whistles, all the problems they make for me in my car. What should I buy to avoid it? What would you tell them?
buy a Asian car or an American car.
Right. Good luck. You just okay.
That's basically
don't
what
buy
it was.
German. Is basically the only thing you can tell them.
Exactly.
It'll be a little worse
German
than the
cars, their technology is amazing. They drive amazing
Right.
when they work.
BMW is some of the. I mean, even a low-end BMW, they tend to be very performance-oriented, and the good stuff
Very.
is really.
Very.
Yeah.
It's BMW.
But it's also bring more wallets too, right? I mean, it's.
BMW is a driver's machine, but BMW right now is at a point where, with their new cars, I wouldn't buy one.
Right.
I will lease one and get rid of it 3 years later because I wouldn't want to deal with the headaches that come along with it. They just don't. Once they get to like 40, 50,000 miles, they're done.
You're not going to believe this. We have been talking. Is this right? We have been talking for
Didn't you-
2 hours and 15 minutes.
No.
Hour and 12 minutes.
Hour and 12 minutes. Okay, an hour and
You
12 minutes.
You said your clock wasn't working.
Yeah, you know what? It's I fixed it, but actually I must have hit the button that told it to go into GPS signal, so it's probably got the wrong time zone. That's probably what's going on.
Okay.
I'm an hour off. I was like, 2 hours? That can't possibly be right. Cool. Yeah. So I've been defeated by technology. No! So you're like a computer geek, really. I mean, like, you're not just a mechanic. You don't have to just understand how an engine works, how a transmission works, how all the systems in a car work in general, but also you need to know enough about computers that you can do computer diagnosis as well.
Correct.
That's crazy.
It's not easy anymore.
It's not like, like the days of, mechanics being, kind
a
of knucklehead
screwdriver and a
grease
hammer
monkeys.
and a pair of pliers. Those days are long gone.
All forearms and no brains,
You can't do that. Like the amount of money that we have to spend just to be able to work on these cars is insane. Some of these scanners, some of these computers are $20,000, $30,000.
Right.
But if you don't have them, you can't work on the cars.
Right.
And then it becomes a problem when the customer brings you the car and you charge it for diagnostic time. They're like, well, why are you charging me for diagnostic time? You just hooked up a computer and it told you what to do.
Right.
But it's not like that.
Yeah, I got it.
That's another problem in the industry itself. That
Right.
we could have another podcast just on that.
Well, no, tell me about it. Tell me. Go
Just
for
people don't understand what's involved on
Right.
fixing cars anymore. There's no.
it. So they made so somebody says, okay, let's add a bunch of features in here so we can get a cash grab. And then a consumer goes out and says, "Oh, look at this nice long list of features. I want to buy this car." And then they get sick of the dealer fees, which I'm sure are like $300-400 an hour.
They're expensive.
Yeah, and then they'll come to you guys, and then you'll be like, and then you'll hand them a bill, and it's got a diagnostic fee on there, and they're like, "Why do I have a diagnostic fee?" But kind of they did it to themselves. I mean,
they don't understand that it takes time to actually figure out a problem with the car. The days of just hearing a noise and knowing what the problem was, those days are long gone. It's very, very complicated. Sometimes it could take, especially with an electrical problem in a car, you could spend a day or two just trying to figure out what happened. Because just because you have a scanner doesn't mean that you know that it's going to tell you, okay, the problem is here. No, there's just more to it.
Right. Yeah, it'll just tell you, like, give you the overall, right? Like what system's having a problem.
Exactly, but then let's say if you have a computer that went down and it took the network down. So now you're only communicating with 10 out of 50. Now you need
Where do you start?
So now you have 40 other modules in the car.
Has that happened?
Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
So now you have 40 other
I think there would
modules.
be a redundant network. Like they have a second network. I guess you have to run all that wire then. It would be really expensive.
So now you have 40 other modules that are not communicating with the car. How do you know which one it is?
You know, it seems like if I had to have a wish list for like if a manufacturer saying, Matt, we're going to build a car for you. Oh my God, the car would be nuts. But look at my van, right? You know.
Yeah.
But one of the first things I would say is I want 2 wiring harnesses connected to everything, even though it's going to give me a $3,000 upfront higher cost. At least then I can use one to figure out what's wrong with the other one.
I would get rid of all electronics.
Get rid of we got to dial it back to the 60s.
But even cars nowadays, something as simple as the steering.
Right.
There's no longer a rack and pinion that runs hydraulic systems and all that stuff. It's all electronic.
Right. It's drive-by-wire.
It's drive-by-wire. So what happens when that goes down?
Well, what happens exactly? Well, like, so this is something that this is a pet peeve of mine. I've been on this since like mid zeros.
Okay.
Telematic systems. So I don't know if you know this. So DARPA, which is part of the Department of Defense, came out and sounded an alarm and said the car manufacturers are not doing their job. They're not adequately securing their telematic systems. They're not adequately securing their communication systems. Cars are going to get hacked. So, like, I don't know if you saw Fast and the Furious 7, where all the cars were driving through Manhattan.
Correct.
To try to lock down the nuclear football so that someone could steal it.
Yeah.
That's real. I mean, you could really perform a terrorist attack with remote control cars to their internet connections. Most cars come with an internet connection permanently on now.
I could grab my scanner and run the car with my scanner. Like an example, Mercedes, I could control all the suspension, make the car go up and down. There's a test when you work on the suspension system on these cars, and you're trying to bleed the system out of the shocks because it's a hydraulic system. It's called the rodeo test. Literally, you sit there, you press a bunch of buttons, and then the car just starts doing this all by itself. You can have the windows go up and down, lights, open doors, do all these things just with your scanner.
Right.
Nobody's in the car.
So what you're saying is making Christine would be really easy these days.
Extremely easy.
Yeah. Was that the name of the movie? Was that Christine?
That old
the old car that killed people? Yeah, the killer car.
It's extremely easy.
Yeah.
Can it be hacked? Of course it can. Do I know how to do it? Not really, but
right.
It's doable. It's a computer.
So they right, yeah. So a lot of those systems, the telematic system, like the system that does the communication, a lot of systems are running Linux underneath. I'm a Linux specialist.
Okay.
I'm telling you, there are patches coming out for Linux like every month for sure, and security patches, and there's a remote exploitable drive a truck through it, kind of, that's a metaphor, but maybe it's a bad metaphor in this case.
Yeah.
But maybe it's an app metaphor.
There you go. Maybe it's not, yeah.
drive a truck through it kind of root exploit, remote root exploit every year or two. So if you've had your car for 4 years, there's probably been 2 root exploits on key components in your car that would allow you to hack into that one computer. And then because all the computers have basically no security on the CAN bus between each other, you could take the whole car over. So apparently the way that you do it is you can actually flood the network. So, you know, it's like a hacking technique you can use on any network. You just throw packets at it, and eventually, you know, the things that you're throwing packets at don't know which packets to answer. So it just answers any packets that come along. And if you flood it with enough messages to say, you know, oh, we're in an accident, you can make the seatbelts tighten up or the airbags deploy. or
It's not.
you know,
it all goes
or
back.
the cruise control, or the
It
steering.
goes down to self-driving cars.
Right. Yes. Well, this is the problem. I think that the push for self-driving cars is really irresponsible. I don't understand. I mean, to me, this is the ultimate. This is technocrats making decisions for people, and people don't realize that they're in any danger, and they don't realize there's any risk.
They just see it as something cool. Let me buy it.
Yeah. They just see the list of features.
They don't know
and
the
like, oh look, this is a
consequences.
great list of features. I love these features.
They don't know the consequences.
Yeah, they don't understand the
Because
consequences.
they're not thinking about the possibilities of something bad happening.
So to me, this is also a problem because, like, socially, there's like there's a risk that there's no situation where you're not gonna hack your neighbor's car as a prank. Because if you hack your right, you're not gonna, because he's gonna drive.
But if you have the ability to do it, would you do it?
well, but see, the thing is,
You could, let's say, if you could hack my car right
Right.
now, if you have the ability to do it,
right, your
wouldn't
truck?
you do it? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't. do it.
What will stop you?
I wouldn't do it because I might kill you. That's why I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it as a joke.
But if you're not thinking,
it's not like your laptop where I can reboot it and make, what's the worst going to happen? You're going to lose a few hours of work.
Yeah.
You lose your life if I hack it. If I hack it
true.
wrong. So this is the problem. So the only thing there's going to be no warning. The first event will be a massive attack. Will be a militaristic style attack. So. I mean, the ability's there. People think it's like what the heck's the name of that? Where not cognitive dissonance. That's it. Where something was normal before, right? You're like, oh, this is how it always happens. This is how it always happens. This is how it's always going to happen.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's completely not true. Because you have, like in the case of GM, for instance, you have OnStar. When you tell them to shut OnStar off,
they don't like it.
not only do they not like it, they don't actually shut it off. So I'm telling you, from like the point of view, they shut it off remotely from their side. It's not like you have to. You would know that they were really shutting it off if you had to go back to a dealer to turn it back on. You don't have to do that. You just hit the OnStar button, and a person comes on and say, "Please reactivate OnStar. Here's my credit card number." Right? That tells you it was never off in the first place.
But
that means there's a connection on the internet to their server.
But even when you tell them that you want to deactivate it, you still 100% connected to them. You still get the emails.
Yep,
Oh, you got a flat tire. Oh, you get this. You get that.
So have you had anyone come in and say, could you shut my telematics system off?
I had that happening, not when I owned my business. I had that happen when I was working for another shop.
Right.
This particular person had a GM product.
Right.
A vet. Bought the car.
Geez, why would he want that shut off?
Z06.
Yeah,
And-
Z06.
Yeah, the Z06. And
I don't want nobody remote stopping me. I'm going to make it.
whether or not
I bought a car that's faster than the helicopters. Why would I possibly want to
whether or not the
OnStar
story
watching me?
is true or not, obviously I don't have proof of it, but apparently he bought the car and then he went to the Jersey Turnpike and did 170 miles an hour, whatever it is, and then very shortly after that he got a letter from GM saying that his warranty was being void because he was driving the car recklessly.
Right.
And he wanted to remove that of his car.
Ah, interesting.
But back then, it was a lot easier to do. Like an example, if I wanted to remove OnStart from my car, the whole radio system, it's into everything. You
Right.
can't get
There
rid
was a
of it.
separate physical module back then, because that was back in those ECU days before
Yeah.
every car had a CAN bus.
But it's not that easy anymore.
Right. So I'll tell you. So you have had people come to you, ask you to do that.
Yeah.
If someone came to you now and said, "Would you do it? Would you do it?" Like, I realize it's not going to be cheap. Could you do this for me?
Probably, maybe not. I don't know. It depends.
You might. Depends on the car.
Depends on the car. Depends on the customer. It's one of those things that it's going to be very time consuming, and whether or not they'll be open to paying the bill.
Right,
Because
right.
It's not that easy anymore.
So I can tell you, GMC Terrain or Chevy Equinox, it's not that bad. So there's a trick. So I did it on
What year?
Up to 18. 19 is a completely different design.
Okay.
So they changed the design. So on mine, I have the unit that actually does the broadcasting. This is the unit that the antenna plugs into.
In the back of
You
the
just have
radio.
to disconnect the antenna, and then it can't transmit. I did a radio sweep once it was disconnected. It can't communicate. The problem is you lose nav. So this is one of the side effects. So you'd have to rig up a special antenna to get nav, but not to get OnStar.
Do you use it?
I didn't. Nav was terrible in that year. In 2013, nav.
My
was
truck
terrible.
has it. I've never used it once.
Yeah, I mean,
my
I
phone.
rarely use it. I usually use my phone because it's better.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, exactly. And so I've disconnected mine because part of it is I didn't want to be a hypocrite, right? Because I'm telling everyone to shut. We need to start. I mean, honestly, I think the ethical answer here is law. And I don't really like to going to crying to government for everything. But to me, there should be a physical switch. You just click the switch, and it shuts off whatever communications
Because
there are.
and
if that thing says off, there is no way to communicate with that car remotely, because you could drive the whole car with the systems attached to the CAN bus. I mean, everything in the car is controllable.
But they just have the ability to listen to everything and see everything that you do.
Right.
And I never like that.
Well, so here's my argument against that legally. I know that that's what they're doing, and that's why they want the data, and I can understand.
Well, they have proof that it's happened.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I mean, I don't doubt for a second that they're doing it. But I would even say they need to pay me, because if you treat imagine this as a car, all right, and I do this with my car, that's copyrighted. I created a copyrighted work. They're stealing that from me. They're not giving me a choice. So, I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but like, it's true. They're really stealing that. And if you say, oh, well, that's just nuts. You're paranoid. They're going to see you're doing 170 in the New Jersey Turnpike, and on my train.
But even if that was the case, it's your car.
Well, right. So there's a lot of ownership laws right now where people are trying to reclaim their cell phones. People have to break into their own cell phones just to install an application, right? The cell phone vendors, Samsung and Apple in particular, but also others too. I mean, I just had to download third-party software to disable the Bixby key on my Samsung. Well, it's crazy. Why would I have to do that? Why isn't it just a menu option and check a box and say I don't want Bixby on this key? So. But like the problem with this is there's a real monetary value. I don't know. You remember hearing about those things from the insurance companies? So the OBD2 port connectors. Right? You get a little module.
I'll never do that.
I wouldn't do it either, but someone might. And it has money. This is worth $300 a year off in your insurance company. Why the hell did they get to steal this? They should have to pay me for it. You want this? $300. Every year. Come on, pay up, GM.
It'll never happen.
Yeah, well, that's how it should work. Because it's your data, they shouldn't be allowed to take it.
There's a lot of things that should happen.
Exactly. Well, we just described the whole world, right?
It'll never happen.
Yeah. But I mean, at some point, a tech wrote the code for this. At some point, an executive made this decision, and probably this was brought up with lawyers, and they said, I don't care. And it's horrible. But anyway.
Because this right here, you can prove that they're actually doing it.
Right. Well, you can.
It's all he said, she say.
Yeah.
You need actual proof.
Right.
Were they listening to what you were saying? You don't know.
Yeah. Well,
we know they are.
Right. Well, I don't think that they probably are not listening to everything that everyone says. Well, they're not listening to what I say because they can't freaking get the signal.
Yeah.
My car thinks it's been in a tunnel since 2013. But that's effectively what happens. It's like, why am I underground still? Whatever.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting if they start putting cars in limp mode or something when they don't connect to the internet over a certain amount of time. But
so they've been talking about starting switching cars to what it will be OBD3. Mm-hmm. And
I didn't know anything of this.
So what happens is, what they were saying is, let's say the check engine light in your car is on because you need a EGR valve or you have a whatever. Mm-hmm. If it's not fixed within a particular time, they disable your car.
Mm-hmm. That's emission controls equipment.
Emissions control, yes.
But it does make your car lightly more efficient.
Exactly.
It's a moderate improvement.
So that's what I've heard. I've heard this for the past 8 years, 10 years. That apparently they're working on a system like that.
All right, time to restore a car. Classic.
they'll have the ability to essentially control.
To do computer checks on equipment.
Exactly. So if your car
in
is
the
not
field.
if your car is not working properly, you can't use your car.
Right. So, nobody really cares about the modders, so everyone will just go, I don't care. But here's the problem with that, and this is actually something that came up with diesel. So in 2009, they changed the diesel rules.
Okay.
They made it lower sulfur, lower sulfur, and so they there was and the result of that is they were able to have more diesel cars and more diesel trucks. And I'm for emissions improvements in general. I'm not against, improving the environment. But first, actually, let me just say something before that. I'm going to segue from my segue. So, segue. Sorry, it's a stick here. Thanks, Isaac.
Steve, will you mind if I have some more water?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the.
Thanks.
Want some, Matt?
Yeah, I'm okay. Thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah, the diesel, part of that was the rule where you were allowed to put a diesel engine in the limp mode, a computerized diesel engine. And that was, so there were tighter emissions control standards on diesel engines themselves, and that's how, not only in how much emissions they could produce, but the systems that they had to use. And so one of the things that went with that was the DEF fluid.
I fucking hate that.
So, from a chemist's point of view, DEF fluid is piss.
It is.
It literally is piss. It's just urine.
It is.
And what they do is they use an injector. Stop me if I'm wrong, because I know some stuff, but I don't know everything.
I'll stop you if you say.
Yeah, you say, Matt, shut the fuck up. That's wrong. So there's an injector that sprays the DEF fluid into the diesel exhaust as it passes by, and it isolates the particulates
at the filter.
At the filter, right, and it lowers the soot coming out of the back of the thing. So that's all well and good. I'm not necessarily against that. Here's the problem: DEF fluid is water-based, just like piss. So what happens when it's freezing? It freezes. So sometimes the DEF fluid sensors can freeze up.
They do.
They do, and when they freeze up. And especially in the early days of the DEF fluid sensors, they would freeze up and they would completely malfunction, and the car would say, "Okay, well, you've tampered with your DEF system. I'm going to go into limp mode as per those regulations."
And then you can't. The cars will start first. You can't drive past 50 miles an hour. Then it gives you 40 miles an hour. Then next thing you know, you're driving at 10 miles an hour, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Right. So, this is a huge problem for commerce because truckers are at risk from this, right? So they're looking for a solution. We'll get back to that. But so this
what's
actually
happening? They keep buying older vehicles that didn't have those systems.
Right.
And those older vehicles became so expensive because of that.
Right.
Now the only thing that happens with it is that with that DEF system, the cars burn more fuel.
Mm-hmm.
If I take that out of my truck right now, if I get rid of all the emissions out of my truck, my miles per gallon will be better.
Oh, okay. So I didn't even know about that part.
Yeah. Thank you.
But aside from that, there was actually a specific instance. An ambulance in Chicago went into limp mode because, of course, ambulances are usually diesel. They have to, by law, they have to be running. They have to have an electrical source, right? Because they need to be ready.
Yep.
So, but yeah, the engine went into limp mode. Guy in the ambulance died because of because the DEF system froze over. This is the consequences of having, of someone sitting behind a keyboard, implementing an algorithm, thinking, oh, it'll be fine. It's not fine. Somebody fucking died because of that.
I think now
they've gotten better with the freezing.
They've gotten better with that, and also
they use the temperature input, and they use that as part of the limp mode identifier, and say, okay, it's below freezing. There's a decent chance this sensor is broken. And
now what they do, if you run low on it, it gives you warnings, and then it gives you a chance to actually add the fluid without going into limp mode. I get it all the time with my truck.
Right,
I
right.
hate it. If I could remove that system out of my truck, I would do it.
Right. So actually, that's the other part. So we live in New York. So New York is a CAFE compliant inspection station state where you have to have you can only, there's limits on what you can do to your emission control systems. They have to be present for whatever was required for that year for the car.
It's limits. You can't do anything.
Right. Well, okay. Yeah.
If you touch anything emissions related to a car,
Right.
unless you go into tuning
Right.
and reprogram the car, it's going to turn the check engine light on.
It's going to freak out.
Once that light is on, immediately you failed inspection.
Right.
I don't care.
And you reset the clock, you reset the normal driving clock on your car computer.
Correct.
Yeah. So what's happening is, so this is true in New York and California and a few of the coastal states, but there's some states in the middle that don't give a shit.
They don't check.
They don't check because this isn't something they have to do. They don't.
Yeah.
There's no federal regulation that requires them. So what do the truckers do? They don't register in New York or California. They register in Minnesota or Tennessee or something like that, and then they take a little stub. And I mean, this is technically legal, right? Because they're just the owner of the car. They're not a manufacturer. The manufacturer couldn't do this, but they can do this. And they just stub out the DEF system. And all it is it's just a sensor that says, yeah, everything's fine all the time, no matter what.
Yeah. And they actually remove.
And they remove all the physical stuff out of the car. So because they made the regulation so ridiculously overbearing, they've actually taken out a system which could theoretically help lower emissions, but now it can't because it was so over nanny-ish that people just abandon it. They just cut it out. They just cut the DEF system right out.
But what I think it also affects is like I was saying, so they're doing this for better emissions, but you're also making the cars burn more fuel.
Right. Right. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me either.
It doesn't.
Right. So I mean, it's not that cars weren't bad, and that smog wasn't real. A lot of this started with the smog laws, and the smog laws were really, especially in California in particular, in LA. But
It was horrible back then.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah, but we're creating a real problem. And what would happen is, if you don't know anything about engine tuning, if you're running your engine and you have extra gasoline in your engine, the odds that your engine is going to blow up are way lower than if you have too little gasoline. So if you have too little gasoline, it's known as a lean condition. So
It creates more heat, and then it starts to burn things inside the motor.
Because carburetors were so ineffective at determining stuff like altitude, temperature, they would just be kind of roughly tuned in a direction. Like, because of that, the manufacturers and people who would bring it to their local mechanic would intentionally tune it to be a little rich. So then those unburnt gasoline would come out of the exhaust pipe because, of course, there was too much of it and it couldn't all ignite. And overall, for every car in a city, it created a cloud of smog that was of hydrocarbon smog, and that was a huge problem. We fixed that in like maybe the late 80s at the worst.
Yep.
Early days of car computers, early days of ECUs, that was over. Once you went to fuel injection and ECUs, that wasn't
the
going to
car started running cleaner. They started using catalytic converters and all those
because the ECUs recognize the altitude, they recognize the temperature.
Self-adjusted everything.
They just adjust everything in a way that you cannot do mechanically with a carburetor. So we're still living with a bunch of regulations, a bunch of emission regulations that are solving a problem with carburetors that was solved 20 years ago. What the fuck? And they just keep ratcheting it down more, and it's like, what are you doing?
It's all about the money.
Yeah, it's all about the money. So what's the solution here? I mean, how do we break out of the cycle? I mean, I realize at some level, right, the cycle's making you money, but also you're a racer too. You want to be able to walk into a showroom and buy a car that's closer to ready for the track than you can now.
That could never happen for me, though.
Well,
for us to have a car closer to
they sell supercars, right? You just don't want to spend $1 million in the showroom.
Exactly, but even then, they're not like raceable cars.
All right, maybe I just don't know enough about it. What
but you could actually walk into a Porsche dealer and a BMW dealership and buy a turnkey race car from them. It comes with a roll cage. It comes with everything.
Oh, okay. But it's not street legal.
It's definitely not. It doesn't even come with a VIN number. But you just gotta spend, $250,000,
Right.
and that's it.
Oh, okay, cool.
That's
so, yeah, no, I'm talking about something you can actually drive around. Win on Sunday, sell on Monday, kind of thing.
They try to still use that mentality, but
Coffee.
no, thank you.
Okay.
Those cars that actually win the races are nowhere near as close to.
Right. No, they were just somewhere in the mid '70s. They started looking just superficially like the cars that would actually win.
Body-wise, they sort of look the same, but they're not. And
Yeah, they're
you open the
completely
hood, it's a
different cars.
completely different engine, different brakes, different suspension. So you're not really buying the same car that you saw winning the race.
So what is like on a quarter mile? What's a fast car now? I don't even know. I mean, to me, 10-second car is like that's all I ever need, because I wouldn't want to drive something more than that in the street, because.
But a lot of the cars out of the box nowadays, they're come 10 seconds, 11 seconds, 12 seconds,
Right.
Without doing anything.
Right.
So that's an extremely fast car.
I mean, I know. I've been following Hot Rod magazine, and they do that across the country race where I forgot the name of it is, where they do that. They race, they drive to the next track, they race, they drive to the next track to try to prove that the cars are streetable. And I think the fastest time in there is like six seconds and change. Like 6.5.
A streetable car?
For streetable cars.
That's insane.
Yeah. Well, that's the best in the country. They win a big trophy and a purse.
Can you imagine driving a 6-second car as a daily driver?
Yeah.
So we've had some customers.
It's totally bonkers. Yeah.
So we've had some customers that we had modified their Mustangs, twin turbo setups and so on and so forth. And when those cars go to the track, they run mid-8s. With AC, full interior, full everything. And
Nice.
these people drive them every single day.
That's crazy.
But it's not like you could go to the dealer and buy it like that.
Is it because of automatic transmissions are more popular now, or is it just
Just in general,
it's just computers just can tune it up that much and down that much on the fly?
think about back in the 60s and 70s with a muscle car. It came with 300 horsepower or 400 horsepower. Oh my God.
That in anything now.
Now you could go to the dealership and
Yeah.
buy a Camaro with 600-700 horsepower without doing anything.
Right.
And it passes emissions. And they're actually tuned down.
Yeah. Right.
You could buy one of those cars, go to the track, and you're going to run 10 seconds.
Right.
11 seconds or whatever they do.
Right.
So
What is your, so is it people, when people have just track cars, what's fast now? What's
far as-
fast in this area, I should say? Are we talking 5 seconds, 4 seconds?
Um,
I'm not dragster funny car kind of stuff, like actual
the average
conceivable
racer, you're talking about high 7s and 8s. That seems like to be like the normal number that you see now.
Right.
And it's so easy to get there with
Yeah.
the cars that are offered on the market now.
So I assume forced induction would be how you do it, or
Yes.
so forced induction could either be turbo or
Supercharged.
or supercharged. What do you prefer?
I like turbo.
You like turbo?
I like turbo cars.
Well, I guess if you're I don't know. It seems like turbo would be a problem. Well, I guess it wouldn't even get a chance to spool down. So most cars now ship with 8-speed transmissions or 10-speed transmissions.
Well, Ford and GM now, they're using 10-speed transmissions.
Right. So I guess spool down wouldn't be a problem, because by the time you shift gears, by the time it starts to spool down, you've already shifted gears and you're up in the high RPMs again.
You could tune all those things nowadays.
Right.
It's not just putting a turbo in the car, then you
Right.
could tune everything. There's anti-lag stuff that you can put on the car. You could tune your car to only make extra amount of boost on first, second, and third gear, so you don't spin the tires as much.
Right, because there's no way to launch an 800 horsepower car
No, because
through the force.
that 800 horsepower car, it's probably making also 800 foot-pounds of torque on boost.
Right. Yeah, your tire will just rip right off the rim.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
you tune that down, and then as the car starts to get faster, you start to induce more boost.
Right. Have you ever done a dual, have you done a turbo and supercharged car on the same engine?
We tried that like 6-7 years ago.
How'd it go?
We tried that
I noticed the word try.
on an old Mustang.
Yeah.
With a notchback.
Was it a Fox body or?
A Fox body.
Nice.
And we.
That's Vanilla Ice. They're cruising in a 5.0. That's a Fox body.
So we tried it, and we put we put the engine from the Ford Lightning, which is the 5.4 liter supercharged engine.
Yeah, that's a legend, by the way. If you pull up next to a Ford Lightning, you're going to lose.
You will. Especially if it was
That's one of those few cars the Marauder guys are like, damn.
Yeah. And then we were bored. We were like, oh, why don't we just put a turbo in this thing too?
Yeah.
And we put a turbo in that thing, and it was making like 800 and something horsepower. But it was just impossible to drive.
Right.
And then we took the motor out and actually got rid of the car. But we tried it.
Right.
It was fun.
It was fun.
What it lasted.
Right. Did you have a tire? Did you install a tire dispenser too, so you could just
No.
drive to the supermarket, drive back?
The funny thing is that motor.
Just do a burnout the whole way there.
That motor is so big
Yeah.
that we actually had to cut the hood, and the top section of the supercharger was just sticking out.
Right. Oh, so Mad Max style, like a roots blower kind of.
And that's how we drove the car.
Nice.
We drove the car like that for about a year to 2 years, and then.
Have you ever driven around sitting on the hood of sitting on the fender of a car with the hood off, trying to tune something?
That's where we have the dyno.
Right. I've done that.
That's what
I've been fucking with the carburetor. All my
Yeah.
friends driving around the block like, no, slow down.
No, we've done that just to check for noises.
Not entirely sure that's legal, by the way. Sorry.
It's not.
Statute of limitations. All right.
Who's watching?
Yeah, who's watching? Nobody's watching. You're not watching this. You saw nothing.
Exactly.
Look at the pen.
We didn't say anything.
Nice. Yeah, I guess that's the problem with doing a show like this. Like, we could talk about like theory, but we can't really necessarily talk about the wildest stories. Even if they're not our stories, you don't want to get someone in trouble. But I guess if you don't say the name, right?
If you don't say a name, you're just having a conversation.
I heard that
Allegedly. Here you go.
There's a rumor that
Somebody said this.
right. So, have you had any cars come in with limp mode to the shop, or?
Yes.
Oh yeah. What do you, like? Any stories about accidents or problems? Like someone was like lost their job because of limp mode, or?
No stories like that. It's been more of a.
I mean, because like most people live paycheck to paycheck now. So I mean, it's
especially in Long Island.
If your car doesn't work, you're fucked. I mean, you're out of luck. You know, like my boss is gonna kill me. You know, because I can't go to work because my car's dead. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have stories on that aspect of it, but we've had cars that that go into limp mode after you start driving the car for a little bit, and it's usually all temperature related. Mm-hmm. Whether it's oil temperature or water temperature.
Right.
Once the computer sees, an example, 240 degrees of oil temps, it shuts everything down. And the car still runs. But when you try to drive it, you could only get up to 25, 30 miles an hour. There is no throttle response. There is nothing.
Right,
and you
right.
just get a little, especially in BMWs, you just get a little picture of the engine cut in half. Letting you know you have...
Oh, God, someone stole half my engine.
You have no power.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a good thing. Like, I'm not necessarily against if your engine is going to overheat, and your computer can dial it back so that you can limp it to safety, rather than blow your engine up. I mean, I've seen idiots, engines making noise. I press the gas pedal harder, turn the radio up.
I've done that.
Yeah.
Many times.
I think anyone who doesn't fix cars has done it.
I've done
I
that.
can get away with 10 more minutes.
Yeah. I've driven a race car in the middle of the race when my ball joint broke, and I didn't stop.
Wow.
It wasn't fun.
Yep.
But I finished the race.
I had a control arm break off in that 66 because the bushings had gone so much and I couldn't afford to replace it. I knew it was wrong. Yeah. I just eventually collapsed and I actually ended up getting stolen in a bad neighborhood. But yeah, I've driven some pretty broken stuff.
Same here. And I could fix it, but
what's the most broken car you've been in a situation to drive? Or that what's the craziest broken car story where someone was just driving a completely broken car? Like, I can't believe this thing was even running. What happened?
Oh, boy. The most stuff that you see is people coming in with, I can't even say no brakes. They grind their brakes down to the point where there is no longer a
It's metal
brake
on
pad.
metal?
No, there is no longer a brake pad. And then, you know how brake rotors, the vented brake rotor has the vanes in the middle?
Yeah.
They're literally, all you see is just the vanes. There's no surface here, no surface there, and then the piston of the caliper is the one actually touching the vanes.
Okay. So the caliper piston's braking on the ribs on the
ribs of the
center
rotor.
of the rotor.
Yeah, so you press
So the way rotors. That's great.
We've seen people come with obviously exhaust hanging off or no oil on them. It's just.
So I had an interesting story. So I had this is crazy. So actually, I worked as a mechanic for a little while, and mainly because I like cars so much, so I learned about them, and then someone's just like, hey, I can pay you to do this, and I said, okay.
Here you go.
And actually, that's how I got into computers. I mean, I was under the first time I was under a hood for any length of time in the summer. I was like, oh my god.
Fuck this.
Fuck this.
I say that all the time, every day, hot or cold.
like stretched out over. You're not just in there with the heat. You're like trying to reach something on this boiling hot engine, and just under the hood, not even touching the engine, it's 130 degrees.
You know what's worse than that?
What?
Working a car in the winter when they come loaded with snow and you got to go up with the car and all the shit just
doing
dripping on
undercarriage
you.
in the snow?
And all that shit's just dripping on you.
Oh, that's fucking awful. And of course now you're soaked.
Not only that, but you're already fucking cold because it's very hard to keep a shop warm because
Right.
you're constantly opening the doors to get the cars in and out.
Right.
So you're already cold as it is, and now you got to deal with this shit fucking dripping on you all the time.
Right, that's nuts.
Yeah.
Do you guys just bring them in and park them and let them drip out and then start working on them?
Well, sometimes you just don't have the time to do that because when you have
Right.
20, 30 cars to do a day, you
Right.
can't just let them sit around and nothing gets done.
Sounds like you need some more performance work. Are you taking more performance work, by the way?
So performance work is my passion.
Right.
It just doesn't pay the bills.
Right. So
Most
you're
peop-
not taking more people with performance
I
requests.
do take them,
Right.
but I don't focus on that. I try
Okay.
to focus my business on the regular auto repairs, maintenance, and so on and so forth.
Right.
You know, I still have my customers with the race cars. I still have my customers with their toys.
Right.
That's what I actually.
Well, there may be
enjoy.
somebody watching that wants to either make a toy or bring their
Yeah.
toy to you, so that's why.
That's what I actually enjoy to do.
right.
You know, I don't get excitement about doing a brake job or killing myself trying to diagnose a car.
Right.
I have fun when a race car comes or when I'm building a car.
Yeah.
During the winter, we usually get people to they'll drop off a normal looking car, be like, okay, I want this to be a race car, and then you spend 300 to 400, 500 hours, 600, whatever, however the build is, and you just built the car from scratch, basically.
Right. All right, now when they that's interesting. So when they come in with a regular car, like it's just like, you know, a car that you would normally associate with performance, and they say, I want to make this a race car. And I mean, are they trying to make a streetable car, or are they just fuck that, I'm taking it off the street, I'm
You'll
throwing
have-
the plates away, and it's never
You'll
it's gonna be
have
trailer everywhere.
both ends of the customer. So usually what the type of
I'm
cars.
a huge fan of sleepers. This is why I'm asking this. You know.
Well, now, but most of the stuff that I do, it's related to road racing. So you're not gonna have that sleeper
Right.
mode of I put a turbo in my car and I'm doing 10 seconds in a quarter mile.
Yep.
With us, it's more about being able to go into a corner at 130 miles an hour without lifting,
Right.
or waiting until the very last second to get on the brakes and actually have a car that stops.
Nice.
That's our
Right.
focus.
That's the thing everyone forgets, right? Everyone puts huge rims on and then they don't put brakes on.
We've-
And to quote a couple of mod shows I've watched, they're a dummy.
Yeah.
If you put bigger wheels on it, you know, think about the brakes, all right?
If you put bigger wheels in it, you
Put a bigger engine on it, think about the brakes.
You're also adding rotating force, which means the car's going to stop less. It's
Yeah.
not going to stop as easy.
Right.
So, so we have some customers that will tell us, build me a car that I could, you know, it'll be fast, not an actual race car, but a track car that they could drive to the track because they don't have a truck or a trailer, or they don't have the space to actually buy a truck and a trailer. And you'll have the ones that tell you, fuck it, go for it, do
Right.
it all. So it's
Right. Yeah, so to me, like, I see that, like, somebody's got an old pickup truck that still has a camper shell in the back. And, like, you know, it's like, you know, like old 80s pickup. It was a nothing pickup. And they basically just gutted the thing, put, like, an insane, like, probably, like, your dual forced induction engine under the hood, and it just creams people at the racetrack.
Actually, last year we had a customer with
And I mean, to me, I see that, and I'm like, yeah! Because, like, to me, that's, you know, people who don't know cars. I don't know. I get enjoyment from when people who don't know cars get schooled by someone who's completely modded their car to infinity. So
last year we did an old Ford pickup truck, an F100. I believe it was 39 or 40. I think it was a 39, 1939.
Yeah. Well, I think some people. I mean, those trucks are beautiful, but I think people expect that. You know, when it's something that old, there's no way it's just been running as a daily driver the whole time.
No, but this particular customer started off with, "Oh, I'm just going to change the motor. Oh, I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to do that." Next thing you know, we did a custom-built frame that we purchased. We put a motor from a 2017 Mustang.
Wait, what? Yeah. So
1939.
The frame wasn't strong enough. They had to do a better frame.
So we ended up putting a motor from a 2017 Mustang,
right?
A 5-liter V8, a custom-built transmission, custom suspension, custom. Like by the time it's all said and done, he used $180,000 into this thing.
Holy shit! And he wasn't mad at you guys about that.
Well, we did.
I guess you have to communicate with them. Keep telling them, you know what this is going to cost, dude. Right?
No, because it was one of those things. I want this, but it was like, okay, if you do this, the chassis is not going to take it. Mm-hmm. So now, if you do the chassis, might as well get a chassis that is custom built for what you want to do, with the rear end that you want, with the brakes that you want, with the suspension that you want.
Right.
But every little thing just adds up. Next thing you know, all right, there's some rust over here, there's some rust over, okay, let's send it to the body shop. Oh, you gotta buy new panels, you gotta buy a new bed, you gotta buy this, you gotta buy that. Oh, I want a custom paint job. Next thing you know, $180,000 later, that's what you got. But he loves it.
No, that's great. I mean, I bet he wins car shows all over the place. I love the cab over.
I don't know if he does any car shows. You know,
It's just for him, huh?
It's just for him.
Wow, that's crazy.
He always wanted one, and he did it.
It's weird. Like, to me, like, I mean, like, you don't have to. It doesn't have to be a particular community. It doesn't have to be all the time. But it's just weird to think about cars without the community. You know, without going to something. You know,
I used to
whether it's at the railroad shows, you know, at the railroad stations, or if it's Captree, or you're going to, like, you know, Carlisle, or, you know, going to the tracks and meeting the same guys at the track. Hey guys, what's up? How's it going? And you're racing. And
to me, like, the whole racing part of it, that it becomes like another family.
Right. Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
It becomes like another family.
It's weird to think about doing this without having a family involved, you know?
So before I was married, before I had kids, and when I used to have fast cars on the street, I used to do all the shows. I used to go to the meets on Thursday nights or Wednesday nights, you know, all these other things. Now I just don't have the time.
Do you still have all the trophies? Do you have a trophy room?
I have trophy rooms for my the races that I've won, which is a lot of them. So,
yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I have some at the shop and I have some at the house.
I noticed that you had some stuff up at the shop. So that's your own personal stuff up on the wall.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
I don't put it all up because it's just I don't want to sound like
a
dick.
Brag.
I don't want to sound like a dick, but it will fill up the whole wall. I've won a lot of races.
Man, you arrogant bastard. How dare you?
I'm actually pretty good at what I do.
Yeah, nice. So, do you want to go back to it? I mean, do you want to
to go back to racing?
Yeah, back to
I'm
racing.
Still racing.
Be competitive.
I'm still racing. I'm still racing competitive.
Where do you sleep? I mean, like,
well,
you got your family, you got the business. 6 days a week. What do you do?
So thankfully enough, my wife has been very supportive about it.
Okay.
Obviously, it hasn't been easy,
right?
Especially with kids. Before we got married and we had kids, I used to be at the track like almost every weekend. I used to be gone for days and days and days and days.
Right.
Now, I pick and choose specific events of the year.
Right.
And then I...
cool wife, check.
There you go.
Yeah, it's a very important one. Cool wife.
It is, because you put in everything on her. So
right.
And now my events, I'm gone for a week.
Wow.
Because I do events down in Florida, I do events down in Georgia, I go to Ohio. Like my next event is, I'm gonna be away for almost 2 weeks down in Virginia because it's like the biggest event of the year.
Okay. What event is that?
It's called the SEC Runoffs.
Okay.
Essentially where they take the fastest and the best drivers of the country and you put them under one event and then whoever wins it wins the fucking show.
Nice. So let's say you place in that like really well, like you either third place or first place or something like that. What happens then? Are you invited to other things? Are there invitationals?
You get invited, but it all depends of your age.
Right.
Like right now in the racing world, I'm old.
Right.
If I was 16 years old, 17 years old, winning all these fucking races, I will have people knocking on my door.
Right.
Or if I was a girl, we actually have a customer. I'm serious. That's changed.
No, it's true.
That's changed completely. I have a friend of mine.
Yeah.
I have a friend of mine. She's actually a really good racer.
Right.
And she's a cool person. She's been racing for, I want to say maybe 3 years. I've been racing for over 20 years. And just because she's a girl, she has gotten farther than I ever have. She actually just picked up a ride. Honda Motorsports approached her. And they're giving her a car.
Right.
Here, take this. Wow. You could go drive it.
Well, clearly you hate women, sir.
I know.
I know. I'm kidding.
No, but it's different.
Well, no. So the IT field is very much like this, and this is a problem. It's like a double-edged problem in the IT field because women. We want more women in the IT field. Like when I have a LILUG meeting, we'll get 1, 2, maybe 3 women in there out of 20, 30, 40 people. And it's 1 out of 10 at best. And that's a good ratio. Usually in some of the industry, there's none. There's just no women at all. And so like on the one hand, you don't want to hire someone just because they're a woman. Right? Because they may not be able to do the job.
They got to have the skills.
You're going to have to pay them. They have to actually be able to do the work. But on the other hand, it actually reflects badly for women who can do the work and who are excellent, who are really pro and know what they're doing, when there was the woman that preceded her in a similar position was hired because she was a woman, and that was the only reason. Yeah. So it's like, which is the solution? I don't know. I mean,
I don't know.
How do we solve this? I mean, obviously being supportive, right? But at the same time, you support your friend. I assume you said she's talented, so she's not just there because she's a woman, but she's having an easier time. They're opening doors for her.
There's a lot of doors that have been opened just because of the fact that she's a woman. Yes, 100%, especially nowadays. With all this crap going on.
Right, yeah. No, the political correctness is it makes it hard to. It can make it hard to be fair, and the problem is that we need a world where we can all live. Like you hear about this thing in women's sports where there's men who are transitioning, they'll say, and they're basically biologically they may think they're women mentally, but biologically they're men.
Oh, yeah,
competing in women's sports.
They shouldn't.
And they
shouldn't be allowed.
Them.
They shouldn't be allowed.
I mean, they're not just winning. It's not like they're winning by a small margin. They're obliterating the women.
That shouldn't be allowed.
Yeah.
Because these women now, they were a man for God knows how many years, we're built different. Our bone structure, everything is just completely different. And now when you take someone that transition,
I smell different.
Exactly. We all do. So when you take someone that transition and they go into a sport where it's a physical sport,
right?
They have an advantage to everybody else.
Right.
I don't think it's fair. That just shouldn't be allowed.
Right.
That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and it's well. So the problem is that this is kind of like we're getting far afield, but the problem is that we have a culture that we all belong to. We have that's our common culture, and then everybody has their own little cultures, and we're very busy protecting everybody's own little cultures. But we need a common culture too. We need a set of rules that everybody plays by at least some of the time, so that we can all get along and decide what's fair.
That's not going to happen anytime soon, though.
Yeah, it better. This is craziness. What's happening? All right. Anyway, sorry. I'm curious. You guys work on hybrids at all?
We do some work on hybrids. Not a lot.
How do you feel about that? I mean, does it make more problems? Does it make things more difficult, or
no? It's actually it doesn't really make it more difficult. Believe it or not, most hybrids out there, they're actually extremely reliable.
Yeah. Yeah, that's been what I've read too. So
Actually, my wife has been bugging me to buy one, so I could just, because we moved out east.
Right.
So now, so I could jump in the HOV lane in
Right.
the mornings. And I've been thinking about it, but they are extremely reliable. We don't do any major repairs.
Right.
Like the Prius, they'll get like 100,000 miles or whatever it is, and then you got to replace the batteries. It's not really that big of a deal.
Are you a Top Gear fan?
Yeah.
Did you see that one where they took the Prius around the track at 80 miles an hour and it was less efficient than the BMW?
No, I didn't see it.
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, one of the Top Gears, that's what they did. They had a test. They said, okay, well, what happens if you take an economy car versus a V8 and you drive them, at whatever the economy car's top speed is, and actually it turns out the Prius is actually worse, more of a gas guzzler at that speed. Because of course that's not how it's really meant to be used.
That's what it was
the V8's way better at coasting at 80 miles an hour on that track.
Because you don't have to the throttle application. It's
Right. You're
non-existent.
You're not redlined the entire
Exactly.
time.
Exactly.
Bing, 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 bouncing off the throttle, the
rev limiter.
the rev limiter. Yeah. So. I just thought that was most of the hypercars now are hybrids.
Yep.
So I think all the hypercars are hybrids. Is there any non-hybrid hypercar? Supercars is different. It depends, but sometimes they're just gasoline.
I'm not sure, to be honest.
I think that the McLaren, Ferrari, Lamborghini for sure. Those three.
Some Lamborghinis.
Zonda maybe has just some hyper gas engine only.
Probably.
Hypercars. Okay. Anyway.
Acura, they have their hybrid version of it, which is the car itself is an all-wheel drive. The way they made it all-wheel drive, they have two electric motors that control the front wheels, and it adds another 100 or 200 horsepower to it.
So we actually had a thing on this show. I might actually tell you something you don't know. So we had a thing on the show, and it just came out in one of the car shows a couple months ago. I think it might have been. Was it the Detroit Auto Show? No, it was after that. But anyway, so someone has figured out how to make.
I saw it.
Oh,
it goes on the wheel.
Fucking hey, you know everything.
I don't know everything, but I saw it.
You are all knowing in the car world. You know what I'm talking about. The wheel has the integrated electric motor into it, and you can just drop them on. So what do you remember? What cars it is that they have that for so far? Because it has to be per car.
I think they had to sign it for. The article that I saw, I think it was designed for a Honda or something like that. They had to replace the spindle and some other things.
Right. They take the whole hub out.
The whole hub out, and they put that in there.
And then basically, like the hub to the rim is all just one assembly, and you can pull it apart.
It's an electric motor essentially. That's what it is.
You've turned, and they had the thing that really fascinated me was that they had the brake rotor on the inside of the rim now, instead of sitting on instead of floating rotor on the hub.
I thought it was all the way towards the outside. I saw it a while ago. It was months ago.
Hold on a second, yeah. So the way
it seemed interesting. I don't know whether it's going to catch or not.
Yeah, I mean, if it works and it doesn't have reliability problems, it'll definitely catch.
And you still have your regular gas power engine. So.
Right. So I think this is the brown is the tire, and the rotor is basically here. It's on the inside of the rim as such.
Yeah.
And hold it a certain way or the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the rotor, and then of course you'd have the caliper, and then in here, in the center,
like a bracket.
You got the electric motor. Yeah. So, and this is basically just the whole wheel comes off, the whole hub comes off like this.
And it's all one piece.
It's all one piece.
It's actually pretty cool.
It's really cool. So, have anybody asked for it yet, or you just know it?
No, I don't think a lot of people are aware of it.
Yeah.
I actually saw it.
I mean, it's a 100 horsepower wheel.
It's insane.
God damn! you could double.
And it wasn't that expensive.
It was 10,000 a wheel, I think.
Yeah,
10,000 a pair or something. No, 10,000 a wheel.
It wasn't really that bad.
Yeah.
If it works, it's not that bad.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about this. This is like I might come in with a Marauder and say, "Help me do this."
You should put
the van.
You should put it in the van.
I should put it in the van, right?
Fucking 5 miles per gallon.
So all right, no kidding. It was that's in the Rockies with a trailer, but still. 5 miles per gallon.
Exactly.
Yeah. So like that trip was over $5,000 in fuel. Going cross country. There was some zigzagging. We took our time. We meandered.
I know. I asked you the question. You're like, hey, I didn't take that into consideration.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I know, right? I mean, considering the price of the van, it's actually pretty cheap. But
Still,
my family got to do something. And we're not going to do that every year, right? You know, that was
why
like,
not?
well, I guess it's $5,000
Just in gas.
Just in gas.
Yeah.
Yeah, forget about all the other
You were
expenses.
gone for what, a month or two?
2 months, yeah. So yeah, it was 5 or 6, something like that. But and you know, of course, the gas price spikes up a little bit in the summer because a lot of people are driving around. Although that's been less true lately, the past few years. So, but so we got hit with that a little bit. Man, fuel is cheap in Texas. Holy cow!
Really?
Yeah, it's like almost $1 cheaper. So
Wow.
I don't know if I don't think they subsidize it, but there's no taxes because it's it's oil country. So they're like, yeah,
crazy.
and they all drive trucks down there. Like I looked every place else, I'm like, driving this monster, especially when I was in an urban area and you're in the city, there's like, like normal little sedans around you. But in Texas, it's all pickup trucks,
It's nuts.
It's awesome.
I like trucks.
You like trucks. You have a truck, right?
That's my daily.
Yeah, it's your daily. Is it a diesel? What kind of fuel mileage you get in that?
When I'm not towing, I've gotten as high as 28 miles per gallon.
Holy shit, that's so great! Man, I gotta get a diesel. The guy who did my 4x4 conversion he'll do a Cumming diesel swap, but it ain't cheap. So
It's probably 30 grand just to do it.
but holy cow, that's exactly what he quoted me. He said, yeah, it's about 30 grand.
Okay.
Yep, that's exactly right.
But when I'm towing, I have a couple of open trailers just for a single car. I get 18 to 20, and when I tow my big trailer, I get like 14 to 16 miles per gallon.
Nice. Oh my God.
Towing at 75, 80 miles an hour with
Right,
a car
right.
inside. You're talking about 10,000 pounds, 12,000 pounds. Total.
Yeah, I would have told you speed with that, but it depended on whether you're going uphill or down. Uphill 55, downhill 80.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
and with the diesel, just especially if you're towing, going up hills, you don't see the speed going down.
Yeah.
The torque on those things are insane. My truck makes over 900 foot of
I
torque.
love diesel engines. I was so excited when those diesel regs changed. I'm like, finally, I was going to get a diesel sedan just to drive, to tool around town, and then the DEF fluid stuff hit, and I'm like, in case you couldn't tell, I was mad about it before. I was like, what? What are you talking about?
I hate that system.
I mean, I don't mind them adding equipment. If it doesn't work, I should be able to shut it off. That's the part that really bothers me. That I can't disable it when it malfunctions. Yeah.
What makes you think that you have that option?
Yeah, you don't.
No.
No, not without cheating somehow.
Exactly.
Yeah. So John Deere, I don't know if you heard about John Deere. So they're taking it to the next level. They make these huge combines and stuff. They're a staple in the farming world. They're actually behind part of the push to actually make it illegal to break through computer encryption for the purpose of manipulating your own equipment.
What?
They actually put it in their contracts. So if you have a John Deere combine and you're a farmer or a tractor, and your tractor breaks down, you can't fix it. You have to bring it back to them. You have to bring it back to them contractually, and they enforce it through software. So you can't even. You can't go. It's not like you can go out and shell 20 grand out for the computer equipment to.
That shouldn't be illegal. That's essentially a monopoly.
Well, this is exactly, and this is the problem. Because so in case you don't know, the phrase haywire actually comes from farmers fixing their own tractors with haywire.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this is where it comes from.
I had no idea.
Yeah, which of course it's uninsulated, and if you do that too many times, the wires can touch and go haywire.
Here we go.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So I mean, just the fact that nomenclature that came from actual farmers tells you everything you need to know about how important it is to farmers to be able to fix their own equipment, and now it has to be, farms have become so commercialized and so huge and so corporate that you can't even, it's just impossible to fix your own equipment anymore. I mean, this is like, at some point this becomes a problem for the country because, I mean, what if there's some kind of tech disruption? I mean, software gets hacked. People's websites get hacked all the time.
Major companies
John
get
Deere's
hacked all the time.
database could be hacked. What if there's an exploit? What if all the equipment that they authorize to work on the John Deere tractors has like a chip from Huawei, yes.
Huawei.
Huawei is one of the chip companies, and actually there was a problem. They were putting backdoors in their chips, and we actually Trump banned some kind of international trade with them based on that. They actually make a lot of chips. They make chips in cell phones and stuff. So, like, what happens if there's an infection in one of the chips, and that's the only thing they use, and the farmers can't service their combines, and it takes them 3 weeks to fix it, and the harvest season's over. Do we starve? How do people not see a systemic problem with this?
I don't even think that conversation should even be
how can we even have this conversation seriously and not have it be a joke? But it's not a joke. This is real.
Fucking crazy.
It's fucking crazy, man.
But I see that happening with cars too. You have some cars out there that won't release any information as far as being able to diagnose the cars. Ferraris, they can release shit.
Right.
You can't get information into those cars.
Can you pay into the system where you can diagnose it, or?
It's still limited.
Right.
It's still limited.
But it has to be a Ferrari dealer to do some things.
Some of those cars, yes.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy, man.
People.
So what it really comes down to is it's like almost like a lie when you purchase it. You think you own it, but you really don't.
No.
I mean, and I completely get the manufacturer's perspective, right? If you're a Ferrari, and somebody buys a Ferrari, and they mod the shit out of it to the point of near destruction, like where the engine's way overtuned and it's not going to survive, and the block is going to crack any day now, even if it hasn't broken yet, and someone else buys it from them and it breaks, and they say Ferrari sucks, don't buy Ferrari,
But Ferrari sucks. Either way.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever noticed, like
you buy a Mustang from, like I heard advice when I was buying a motorcycle for the first time. Look out for holes drilled in the forks. That means it was raced.
Okay.
Yeah, like they had to put pins in them. So if you see holes there, that's it. Don't buy it because it means this thing was raced. And so but there's not always a physical. Ability to see a physical sign that the thing's been raced.
So when I started working on cars, I worked at a shop that all they did was exotic cars. Mm-hmm. We did Ferraris, we did the Lamborghinis, Rolls Royce, all this other fucking crap. And the one thing that I did realize is that all these cars that always came in with like close to no miles, mm-hmm. and the repairs on these things were 10,000, 20,000. Like their fucking cars are garbage. Mm-hmm. They're just garbage. They don't stay together.
Right.
They don't stay together.
So it's not even because there's no economy of scale. So one of the things that happens, what people may not realize, and one of the reasons I wanted my van, why I wanted that old van, because it had been so many plumbers depended on it for so many decades.
They're reliable.
And they really haven't changed that much. They're super reliable. But they're reliable because they're well understood. I mean, because they have literally millions of complaints coming in over the years about what's wrong with it, and every year they iteratively fix a few things.
They've built millions of them.
Right.
So whatever mistakes they made on this year, they're not going to do it on this one, and vice versa.
And it seems like what's happening is this vendor lockdown of the computers is a way to cover that up. Is a way to cover up that you haven't sold millions of these, and to make them look more reliable than they are. And then when they do break down, you're on the hook. So like the reason that they're doing it is because they're trying, let's say you sell 1 million vans, right? And 50,000 vans have a problem, right? You're going to get, no matter what, Ford's going to hear about some of them. They might not hear about 50,000 of them, but they might hear about 1,000 of them or 10,000 of them. So, but if you sell 50,000 of something, you might not hear about a problem at all until it kills someone.
Exactly.
Right? So this is their way to force them to get data, for reliability settings. But that's not really the customer's problem. That's their problem, and fuck you guys for trying to make it my problem.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just dirtbaggery. Sorry. Let's get into something more fun. What do you think about variable cams, like in the new new Mustang engines?
The newer cars. Well, that started happening.
So the cam is the camshaft. So normally you have the crankshaft, and that's pushing the pistons.
So the camshaft, what it actually does is opens the valves.
Mm-hmm. And the camshafts open the valves. And more recently, they have, I don't know how they do it, where in the old days it would just be chained together, the cam and the crank, and whatever speed the crank was turning, the cam would turn into some ratio of that, and that would make the valves open and close.
They were connected by either a gear, a timing belt, or a timing chain.
So how do the variable cam engines work? Sorry. I was massaging my mic.
The way they actually work, they work with oil pressure.
Right.
So they have these oil pressure controlled solenoids
Okay.
that once the car reaches, let's just say 4,000 RPMs, in order to maximize the power, it will activate the solenoid, send the pressure to the cam sprocket, because the camshaft itself, it's not the thing that's moving. It's no different than it was 50 years ago.
Right. It's still spinning off the power of the engine.
The difference is the actual cam sprocket. You'll have a cam sprocket that is not just a regular gear like this with the teeth like a bicycle.
Right.
It's a device with a bunch of valves and plates and everything inside.
Oh, it's like a little mini transmission.
Exactly, and
okay.
it changes the timing of.
See, I was wondering if it was like a bicycle gear, like where you know, like a shift between the big gear on the back of the bike, you know?
It does it on demand. So in some cars, you could move the advance or retard the timing up to 40 to 50 degrees.
Right.
Or infinite.
Right.
They started with Honda, the VTEC. That's their version of the variable control timing. BMW has it as a called the Vanos. And
I remember hearing about the VTECs, and people were really bonkers about them, and I didn't understand what it was.
It's like starting another motor at whatever.
Right, so they were the early ones with the variable cam.
4,000, 5,000 RPMs. It moves the cams, it retards or advances the cams depending on what you want, the throttle application, and then it gives you more power.
It's all about lag. So when like when the explosion in the cylinder's happening, you want as the engine's running faster and faster, the time, because the pistons are going up faster and faster, the significance of the lag changes as the
duration of the opening of the valve.
Right.
So if you're able to control when the intake and exhaust valves open, if you want it to open a little sooner or a little later, it's gonna keep you more power.
Right.
Or if you want to keep them open longer.
Right.
That's why people change the camshaft.
Because one of the things I've seen people doing with the Mustang engines are called Coyote engines. That's their code name.
Yeah.
So, and I've seen people doing these stupid kits where they lock the cams in place at a certain ratio, and I'm like, that defeats the whole fucking purpose of the.
But it doesn't. It depends on what they're trying to get out of it. So, on BMWs, on race cars. Some people will actually lock or delete the Vanos out of it.
So I shouldn't be hating.
You shouldn't be hating, because let's say if they're using a very aggressive camshaft, that the duration and the lift is like retarded. That what like you're
literally retarded.
Yeah, like
literally
you'll have a crazy freaking camshaft. You don't want to have anything moving around because you don't have the room for it.
Right.
So let's say
if you get off by 2 degrees, you got valves hitting pistons.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
So then you lock it in place.
Yeah, that's when you get holes in your block.
Holes in the block, holes
in your
in
body,
pistons,
and maybe the spectators.
Actually, the biggest hole is in your pocket.
Right. Yeah.
That's the one that hurts the most.
Yeah. Right. The hood's just kind of a good story. The pocket's the one that.
When you have shit flying out of the car, that's not fun. Because all you see is just dollar signs come out. Yeah.
That's great. Okay, so I was just curious about. What's your dream engine? I mean, like, what do you want to? Like, if you had a project, you had unlimited money for a street car, let's say, not a race car, but like just something like a sleeper to really blow people away, and you just, of course, the rest of the car is built. Let's not worry about that. What kind of engine would you put in the thing? I mean, what's your favorite? I noticed you had some Ford racing performance parts in your shop, but I'm not assuming that that's what you want.
It will depend, obviously, on the car. So we got to start first with the car.
Right. You can't work outside the car. So you're not gonna be doing engine swaps where you're pulling a Ford and a Chevy, or a BMW engine and a Mercedes, or
you could.
Okay.
You could. It's just It's just a matter of putting all the pieces together of what you're looking for. So let's say if I want just a plain sleeper car that
it's just fast.
That it's just fast.
Right. That's usually where people start. That's why I'm You don't really. I don't know. I realize there's two ways I see people getting into cars. One is you mash the gas, you're pinned to your seat. The other is you got a stick shift, it's light, and you take a turn at 20 miles an hour faster than you thought was possible, and you go, that was fun, I want to do that more. So to me, those are the two ways through experience into the car world.
So,
And I know you're more into the stick shift, 20 miles an hour faster than you thought.
That's
The
why
fun car.
that's why I'm having a hard, because usually it's a sleeper car nowadays. It's very hard to actually have a sleeper car that is with a crazy engine.
Mm-hmm.
Usually when you think about
Engines aren't the problem anymore. It's the chassis and the weight.
exactly. So now
and the unsprung weight. That's the weight in the wheels.
because cars nowadays they just have so much power out of the box.
Power is not the problem anymore.
Power is not the problem. In the days of back 10, 15, 20 years ago of having an actual sleeper.
This is great. I feel like I've traveled the mountain and you're setting me straight.
It's just those days are just long gone. It's you can't just say, oh, I'm gonna buy a Mustang, but it's gonna be a sleeper Mustang. Is it?
Really? Yeah.
Like, is it really gonna be like?
You wouldn't be able to deliver power.
And in order for you to have that power, that holy shit, look at this guy go.
Yeah.
Oh, it's gonna be fucking loud. So it's no longer a fucking sleeper.
Right.
So it's a very hard question to answer.
You're in trouble if you pull up next to a car and you look at the rear end of their car and it's just tire, a pumpkin, and tire, right?
And there's
it's the
no
delivery that really matters.
And there's no threads on the tire.
And
You have a slick.
You're
like, okay.
It slicks and the whole back end is just one big
Yeah.
tire. You're in trouble.
what you find nowadays, cars that are sleepers are actual German cars.
Right.
Those cars are known for being luxury cars.
Right. Most people don't drive them, even though they have the potential. They don't drive them up to potential.
I did a 5 Series BMW for a customer of mine.
Mm-hmm.
When you start the car, it wasn't loud, but the car made 780 horsepower at the wheels.
Was it all-wheel drive?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
It wasn't.
Oh, it wasn't. Okay.
It wasn't all-wheel drive.
How do you feel about all-wheel drive? Is that the way to go if you want to get that power down?
If you could find a car
They could handle the upgrades.
that could handle the power and not have your transfer case break in little pieces.
Yeah.
But obviously, you want the all-wheel drive because you want the grip.
Right.
It doesn't do you any good to have a car that makes 1,000 horsepower if you can't press the gas because the fucking thing's spinning.
Right. Well, I think this is one of the advantages the P100Ds, the Tesla P100Ds have.
So I have a customer that
Because
has
all-wheel,
one of those.
once they go the all-wheel drive option, you have twice as much grip as the thing next to you on the tracks.
So I have a customer that has the SUV model of it, which is
The Model X.
the Model X.
Yeah.
And he came over to the shop. I was like, come on, let's go for a ride. He put it on the ludicrous mode.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
By the way, that unit that he typed that into is Linux.
Is it?
Yeah, all Tesla's back-end stuff is Linux.
That's crazy.
So, yeah.
I was beyond surprised of how fast the fucking thing was. But I felt weird.
You felt weird.
Because there was no sound.
Right. There's nothing visceral about it.
I need to hear an engine revving. I need to
Yeah.
shift. I need to feel.
Even when I play video games, I know it's not stupid, but when I play video games, I usually turn the engine noise up because that way I don't have to watch the tack. I know what's going on. It tells me information. It's critical information. I mean, I know some cars, they actually pump noise into the cabin now. Like Mustang started doing that.
Yes,
Like it'll actually
with the EcoBoost engine.
It makes it's actually quieter outside the car than it is inside the car. They're actually, if you have the stereo turned up, you hear the engine along with your music.
BMW does it too.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I find that ridiculous.
What do you mean?
Put a real fucking motor
Gadgets
on
are
it.
great. What could possibly happen?
I hate that. You want to call
Driving
it
along.
loud. But outside the car, it's like
Right.
you don't hear them. It's just I find it stupid.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I was never, the sticker aisle at Pep Boys was never my go-to place. Yeah. I'm more about wow, what a piece of junk. Oh, where'd it go? So, I mean, I guess it sounds like you wouldn't ever build a rat rod, you know? I mean, or would you build it? Well, you probably would build it for a customer, right?
I'll build it for the customer.
Yeah.
Without a problem.
Yeah.
For myself,
Would you feel the love while you were building it? And
100%.
then, knowing you're going to wave goodbye at the end?
Like I was saying to you before, like I love working on these cars. Like right now, we're probably by tomorrow we're going to be finishing. We have this 67 Cobra kit car with a 427 side oiler, and I love working on those cars because you don't get to see them as much.
Yeah.
And those are real driver cars. There's no ABS. There's no traction control. All there is how heavy your fucking foot is, and if you have the balls to actually drive it.
Right.
They don't come with good brakes. They don't come with good suspension. So to drive those cars hard, it takes a lot.
Right. It's physically taxing, right?
It is.
I mean, you must have really good endurance. I mean, it's fun. Actually, it's funny because I said before the show, I said, you want to make a bathroom break. And you're like, no, I don't need it. I guess you don't, right? If you're going to be racing cars, you got to be able to hold it in.
But it's another thing that most people don't know. In order for me to maintain my race license, every year I have to go through a very hard physical test.
Really?
That if I fail that test, I will not get my license.
That's crazy.
Every year I got to do it.
What is it, like jogging and push-ups and stuff, or?
So they make you run on a treadmill for 25 minutes. They check your heartbeat.
Wow.
They check your reflexes. They check everything they can because you're putting your life and other people's lives on the line.
Wow.
And the environment of being in a race car, some people might think that you just get in the car, you put your helmet on, and you go.
Right.
Just to give you guys an idea, if it's 90 degrees outside, inside the car doing a race is 130 to 140 degrees.
Because of course, because like people don't realize how much insulation there is between them and the metal shell of their car.
Well,
all that stuff's ripped out.
Everything is gone.
It's gone, yeah.
And you have a driving suit.
You're in an easy bake oven with the engine.
Exactly. You have a driving suit. You have gloves. You have a helmet.
Right.
It's not, and there's no air conditioning.
Right.
So you have to be fit.
Yep.
You have to be able to go through a 40-minute race or a 3-hour race without passing out.
Right. That's crazy.
It's not easy.
Honestly, man, that's for you, man. I'm not. I mean, I might do it. I might do that idiot exhibition thing where they just clear the track and let me go around once. But
fun.
I don't think I'd want to do it. I don't think it would be fun.
So
I think it would be too much. I enjoy racing games.
Out of all the years of doing this, I've realized one thing.
Yeah.
When you do it the first time, you either love it or you hate it. There's nothing in between.
All right, secretly I might love it. I guess I have to try it. One of these days I should try it.
The problem is that if you try it and you love it,
you're fucked.
You're fucked. it's
You're never gonna have money again.
It's an addiction. It's an addiction. It's really bad.
Yeah. Well, that's like that Motley Crue song, "Kickstart My Heart."
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's bad. Like the first time I did it, I was like, holy shit! Like, I want to do this all the time because.
Yeah.
It's just fun.
Does the adrenaline wear off after a while? I mean, imagine you can't have the adrenaline running the whole time.
What I find most interesting about racing is you learn something new every time you're out there. And you always have to improvise every single lap. Why? Your car is different every single lap.
Oh shit, I didn't even think of that.
Now, the fuel loads are changing, so the weight of the car is changing. The car is getting hotter. Your brakes are not working the way they're supposed to work because they're hot. Your tires are getting hot, so they get greasy. The track temperature changes.
There might have been an accident on the track.
There might have been an accident in the car. Maybe the car in front of you is dumping some oil and all that stuff. You have to improvise and adapt to everything, every single lap. So you start the race with a full tank of gas,
so
brand new tires, and you're fresh. Because you're not sweating, you're not. Now, 30 minutes into it, the car is possibly 100 or 150 pounds lighter. You're tired because it's 140 degrees inside the fucking car.
Yep.
You find that your brake pedal started here and now it's here. So every time you get to a braking zone, you have to pump the brakes.
Right.
So all these things are constantly, and then on top of that, you might have an asshole that is right on your bumper trying to fucking take your place.
Right.
It's a lot.
That's crazy. Yeah. I mean,
the mental game.
Right.
I've won races without being in the car itself because you play mind games with the other racers. and you know when they fall down, and,
Right.
and that's it. Like you know it.
You probably just look in their eyes and they get,
Racing.
you just see fear and
obviously-
you go, oh, they're dead.
Obviously, it takes talent to do it,
Right.
but the mental side of it, it's one of the biggest part of it.
Now we really are 2.5 hours in. Can you believe it?
That was easy.
That was easy. I told you, man. It
That
gets
was easy.
easy. It gets really easy.
Yeah.
So don't worry, I have more questions for you. You're not leaving until 3 hours. No, I'm just kidding. You're all right.
I don't care.
All right.
Fine.
So you got to see his shop. It's pretty amazing. So there's just performance cars in pieces everywhere. So right, you're pulling
Yeah.
apart cars. You're trying to save weight because you're looking at the holistic, right? Because everything's fast now. So it's not about speed. It's about the whole, the braking, the weight distribution, where the weight is in the car, all that stuff.
Correct.
So you're looking and you're like, okay, I don't need all these fucking stupid bells and whistles in this Beamer. I'm going to pull them out. And you're taking stuff out of the CAN bus. And so how do you deal with the CAN bus freaking out about that? I mean,
So there's two ways to go about it.
right,
One way is you remove only what you could remove out of the car.
right. So I mean, obviously
not
the
to-
weather stripping and the carpet and all that
No,
shit.
but
you can
meaning
take
what
out.
I'm talking about when I'm saying remove what you could remove, I'm talking about modules, computers, and so on and so forth.
Right.
Some cars, if you don't have the means, meaning the money to actually go all out, you have to leave all these computers in the car, otherwise the cars are going to run.
Right. It's just going to freak out and say
then
something's
you-
missing and then just go
And then
limp
you
mode.
find yourself driving a pig that
Right.
it weighs an extra 300 to 400 pounds because you have all these things.
Right.
So now if you have the money to do it, then you remove everything and you go into an aftermarket engine management.
Right.
But now you're removing.
Aftermarket engine management? Like
Yes.
Like you just take all the CAN bus stuff out and put a new computer in there?
I need a computer that is going to control your ABS system, that is going to control your engine. Because
Right.
that's essentially all you need on a race car.
Right. Just the ECU, the old school ECU engine controller kind of stuff.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then you rewire the whole car.
Okay.
Just
That
with
sucks.
what you need.
So wiring harnesses are, if you've never had to replace one, they're ridiculously expensive because they
So-
touch everything.
Yes, and some of these wiring harnesses on a race car, if you want to do a professional build, just the harness alone could be $10,000, $20,000.
Wow. That's even more than I was thinking. Yeah, that's
Just
that's
the
more
harness.
than a consumer
But
car.
they're a piece of art
Right.
when you see them.
Right.
I actually don't build them. Let's say you go to a Motec system, which is one of the best companies out there.
Right.
They know the company is called Motec. You tell them what you want and so on and so forth, and then you'll have a professional build you a wire harness that it looks like a wire harness from an airplane.
Right.
It's insane. I'm good, thank you.
I could use some water. Yeah, I'm dying. Thanks, man.
And they're all like quick disconnect, and it's just amazing what they do.
Right.
But it costs money.
Right.
But if you want to have a
Well, you probably can save a few bucks if you have more than one. Oh, but I guess not, because it would be per car. So someone comes with a different year, you can't use any of the stuff from the other.
different. And you'll have customers that'll have different requests, like, oh, I want this, oh, I want that.
Yeah.
And you have to
Well,
please
everybody's got
them.
an angle, right? Because they want to win.
I've had customers that they ask me to remove half the wiring out of the car, but they're like, oh, but I still want to keep my electric windows.
Right.
Why? It's a race car.
Yeah.
It's just
You know what mine would be? The one thing,
AC.
fucking air conditioning. Fuck that! I don't give a
So-
shit. At least, like, it can not run when I'm on full throttle. But if I'm going along at 2,000 RPM on a curve, it should be running, man.
So they actually have these systems now, which is they have AC for race cars,
Right,
and
right.
there's this other systems that is called like a cool suit.
Okay.
So
Thanks, man.
essentially, it's a
You're
shirt
the best.
with a bunch of with a tube that kind of goes around,
Oh, okay.
and then you have two hoses that connect to it. That hose goes to a cooler with a pump.
Okay.
That before the race starts, you fill it up with ice
Right.
and water, You turn the pump
Kind
on,
of like a chiller killer, but for a human.
and it runs the fucking cold water to keep you fucking.
That's
cool.
a thing, by the way. You can put ice in your engine to cool it off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they do that too.
Yeah, but that's really only for quarter mile kind of stuff. That's not for long term. The ice wouldn't last.
No, it wouldn't last.
It wouldn't last.
But people do that. But
Yeah.
I personally don't like it because I'm adding 40 pounds, 50 pounds of weight on the car.
I added a fan onto my van on the trip, so we stopped at an auto store. I found the biggest fan I could, and I added it in because, with the trailer and the heat on the mountains with the lower.
Yeah, didn't you have an issue with the AC at some point?
The AC would eventually the engine would go, nope, we don't need the AC anymore. We're too hot, and it would shut the AC off. So the car ran fine, the van ran fine, but we'd be inside like, oh my god, kill us, pulling stuff out of the cooler, just guzzling back.
Did it happen when you were like high altitude?
It happened. Well, actually, it happened in a high altitude, but in the northern Arizona on the way into Utah, there was this mountain range. They warned you too. They said it's really hot. Look out.
So the combination of the altitude and the heat.
The altitude and the
not
heat.
enough air.
And it was it just said nope, and it shut the AC off, and it was 110 in the van before it came back on. So with the wife and kids, I'm like, yeah, it was bad. It was awful. I mean, like I put up with some crap. I ride a motorcycle, so like in the middle of the summer, it's like that. But like,
that's like the worst time to ride a motorcycle.
Yeah, I know. I do it. I ride to work, so it'll be in the morning and at night. But once in a while, you get fucked and it's really hot.
Nah, no thanks.
Yeah,
I like my AC.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I was thinking about the motorcycle. What you were saying before about every lap the track is new, and this is one of the things they teach you in motorcycle school. Look at every road and say, have I been on this road before? And if you haven't, you got to ride different because you don't know what the hell to expect. You have to leave a huge margin.
You have to expect the worst.
Yeah,
every single time.
You can't drive to the max potential because you're gonna die. You're gonna lose control.
Listen,
you're gonna hit a little grain of sand and that's it. You're done.
It's happened to me where I'm at the track approaching a braking zone. I'm doing 130, 150 miles an hour, and I go for the brakes, and there's no brakes.
Yeah. How did you emergency brake? What do you do? Throw the anchor out?
There is no e-brake.
There's no e-brake. You just put it in the rail and try to control the crash.
You just start pumping, and then
please.
Somehow it stopped, and I made it out. But this stupid person that I am, I didn't stop. I continued racing, and all I did is before every braking zone, I make sure that I had a brake pedal.
Right.
I overcooked the brake fluid.
Right. Yeah. Well, once it starts boiling or gets close to it, you're screwed. So.
Well, our brakes see temperatures of 1,700 degrees.
Holy crap! What is there like a special brake fluid that gets that hot that doesn't boil?
Yeah.
Okay.
We use special fluids, special brake pads. The brake pads that we use, they don't start to work until they go past 500 or 600 degrees.
I had no idea how serious you were about racing when you came on the show. This is like, if you think this is just me trying to survive this, and we're not scripted, so.
I actually, it's my passion. I love racing.
Wow.
I think about it. I don't want to say 24/7, but I think about it every single day.
Wow. That's great.
It takes a lot of preparation.
You know what? I get it. I totally get it. I mean, I don't get it like the sacrifices that you've had to go through. I haven't walked the mile in your shoes, but I could imagine wearing the shoes. I kind of get the
it's just
idea.
like with any passion, that people will go above and beyond to do whatever it is that their passion is, or their dream, or whatever it is.
I mean, to me, this is what it is to be human. I mean, it's just like, if you can't find something you love like this, life just sucks. You're just muddling through trying to survive.
It took years for my wife to realize that the racing was a big part of
that
my
was
life.
The joy in your heart, other than her, obviously, and your kids.
And the kids, yeah. Now she's like, okay, I get it. This is our life now, so it is what it is.
Right.
We make the best out of it, and
that's a keeper.
And my kids love it, I shouldn't say that. The last time
I tried cheering for you, and do they come to the races or?
So we attempted to take, because my kids are young, 3.5, and my other one is 22 months. Mm-hmm. So we attempted to take the kids to the track last year.
Right.
So they were younger.
Right.
It's the fucking worst weekend ever.
Really?
The whole fucking the whole ride to the track, they fucking cried nonstop.
Yeah.
Hotel, nonstop they cried. The next day, now I'm going to the track. I'm going to race with no fucking sleep because my kids kept me up all night.
How old are your kids now?
3.5 and 22 months.
22 months. So okay, yeah.
So last year they were very young. So I told my wife, you know what?
An infant and a 2-year-old. Yeah.
So I told my wife, you know what? The kids are not coming to the track for a long fucking time.
It gets better.
I'm sure it does.
Yeah, it does. I brought my kids to car shows. They're good. They know the rules. You know, they're holding the door. The doors like this as they're opening up, so they don't smack into other cars.
That's cool.
Yeah. They know that. They know
the drill.
They know not to you know. If they think a car looks bad, they don't say anything. They don't hurt anyone's feelings. You know,
They'll be like, "Daddy, this car's a piece of shit."
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, I don't want to fight some guy's dad, guys. You know,
Yeah, stop.
Just plug it in, all right? Just till we walk away.
They'll come up to the guys like, "Did they make this for men or?"
Oh, be awesome. Yeah, the problem is, of course, it's his car, right? So his tools are there. He's got the wrench, you know, and then I got to run or I got to fight a guy with a wrench, you know.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So, so I do have one question that came up during this aero stuff. So you said, of course, you know, having a balanced car is all about downforce, right? Especially at speed. How do you do it? Do you like rent a wind tunnel? You know, like if you're building a car from scratch. I mean, obviously, if it's just a stock body, you're done, right?
So, thankfully enough, the type of car that I drive a BMW M3. That's my race car.
Okay.
It's a proven chassis that has been raised for many, many years. And
So there's already specs out there on what wing will do what on
there's already specs out there, and we work with companies that's all they do.
Right.
And they've done their wind tunnel testing. They've done all their testing. So what we do, we try to put all the pieces together. It's like we on the front of the car, we'll do what we call a splitter, which is a flat piece of whether it's carbon fiber, wood, or whatever it is,
right.
underneath the car that covers the front section of the car, and obviously you angle it to push the nose of the car down.
Right. Usually those have adjustable. The better ones have adjustable.
And then on the back
on
the back of the car, you'll do a rear wing. They make a huge difference. It's insane. Before we started playing with aero, corners where before you'll be approaching the corner, let's just say 110 miles an hour, and then you'll be lifting and kind of just not feeling comfortable because the car is moving around the whole time. You do the right setup. We're doing a splitter and a rear wing, and now that corner is 115, 120 miles an hour, and you don't even think about lifting.
Right.
So you have to train your brain to understand that the car could actually do it now, because there's some places you go that your brain, your body, and everything's telling you, asshole, get off the gas, get on the brakes, but you have to train your brain to go past that.
Right.
Because cars have gotten so much faster. Like some of the tracks that we go to.
I totally know what you're talking about. Even just switching from, because you know I've got 3 vehicles, so switching between the vehicles completely different, right? You know.
So I could tell you that my car, an example, at a track at Jersey, the first year of the car, which not a lot changed, but minor changes have dropped my lap times by 4 to 5 seconds.
Right.
And it's all about the commitment of understanding what you have and doing the balance with the aero on the car. If you could get the car to, if you could get aero balance correctly, then it allows you to do things that you couldn't do before.
Right.
So if you have too much front downforce and you turn the wheel at a high-speed corner, then the back of the car is going to come around. If you have too much rear downforce with a rear wing, what happens, you turn the wheel, now the car doesn't want to turn.
So you're going to have to adjust this before every track, really.
Exactly.
So how do they let you take test laps so you can?
So we have, most of the events will have 2 practices, which are about half an hour each. Then you'll have a qualifying session. Then you'll have another qualifying session. And then you'll have 2 races per weekend.
So the practices are just as much about getting to know the track as also getting to know how your car reacts on the track, so you can adjust it.
The car.
You know, adjust the shocks. So you can adjust the shocks. You can adjust the front and back aero. What else can you adjust on it?
Sway bars.
Sway bars. Of course, the
pressures,
tune too, right?
Alignment.
Right.
Right,
because you could have it turn in a little bit because if
more
it's
toe out, more toe in, more camber, less caster, so on and so forth. But as far as the tune is concerned, you know, with the classes that we have, we're limited as far as what we could do power-wise.
Right.
So-
But again, power's not really the problem anyway, like we were
It's
saying.
really not. Like
Yeah.
in my class, the minimum weight of my car is 2,600 pounds, and I race against cars that their minimum weight is 3,300 pounds or 3,400 pounds, but they make an extra 150 to 200 horsepower more than me.
Right. Okay.
So you'll have tracks where it will favor them.
Right.
Longer straightaways and so on and
Right.
so forth. And you'll have all the tracks where they have more corners where
You'll have
they,
the advantage.
they have no chance.
Right.
But some of the tracks that they have the long straightaways, obviously there's still corners and they still have to stop. And when you look at the actual lap time, the lap times are almost identical, but they achieve that number just by going faster in a straight line, and we achieve that number by going faster in the corners. So when you have more downforce, that means you could brake deeper, and you could go into the corner faster, which is something that it can do.
Right. Right. Well, you can brake deeper if you have brakes.
Yeah, but a lot of the braking, there's a whole misconception that people think that better braking, it's all because of the brake pads. It's not. It has a lot to do with the suspension and the tires. Most of your braking power on the car, it's due to the suspension that you have.
Right. Because if all your braking's lost into a dive. Right.
Exactly. So if you press the brakes and the car is doing this, then it's not.
Right.
So it's just a whole misconception.
So you're also putting a proportioning valve in there and locking up the rear wheels. A little bit,
Well,
right?
we actually use ABS, and we use it to our advantage, and we have a
Well, not locking,
we have a motorsport version of the ABS,
Okay.
which is tuned to what we have.
Does it pulse faster or?
It allows more slippage on the tire, so you
okay.
don't want it to kick in all the time so easy, because it's a combination of
Because the more every time it's backing off, you're not braking.
correct.
Got it. Okay.
But it also has a lot to do with the brake.
So it's acting more like how I would act back in the day, where
Ex-
and then instead of not like a double
Correct.
bass in a heavy metal song.
pretty much, but
Yeah.
it also has a lot to do with the brake compounds.
Right.
Every driver, like we all have the same cars, but you like different type of style of braking, so you use different brake pads than I use.
Right. Do you find yourself like using your drumming skills to do for the rhythm of driving the car?
Not really.
Does it come into play? I mean, you're not using you have an automatic transmission, right? So
No, it's a stick shift.
it's a stick shift.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I'll send you links on my videos.
Yeah, cool, man. Yeah,
And,
if you want, you could tell us after. We could link it on the.
And on the videos itself, we have the ability to, on the camera itself, it comes up with the data of what we do and the speeds, where you're braking, where you're accelerating, and so on and so forth.
well, because, specifically what I meant by that was kind of like four-way independence. Like that. Not everybody. A lot of people can't do this. A lot of people don't have the ability to do one thing with this arm, one thing with this arm, one thing with this foot, and one thing with that foot.
The coordination.
Yeah, like they're trying to feather the clutch, and like you're.
I'm
taking what
horrible
you're-
in coordination with some things, but when it came down to playing the drums and driving a car,
Yeah. Me too, man. I can totally relate.
I suck at everything else. I can't dance.
Yeah.
My wife will tell me, yes, you dance very well. It's like, you saying that because you love
How
me.
dare you not fit a stereotype? Since we were talking about it before.
I can't fucking dance.
Nice.
It's like I gotta stick up my ass. Like I'm so stiff.
Yeah.
I can't move.
Yeah. Do you just resort to air drums when people are dancing? Like, all right, yeah.
I look like an idiot.
Playing to the corn in your head.
Yeah.
Hey, do you play music at all when you're racing?
Not while I'm driving.
I'm picturing Raining Blood.
Not while I'm driving. When I'm driving to the track, or
Right.
I either listen
Blasting corn while you're.
I'm either listening to music
Right.
or listening to podcasts.
Okay.
That's it.
Awesome. So, do you have any questions for me? Is there anything that you wanted to know from? I mean, I know my wheelhouse is Linux, so but also I know pretty much a lot of stuff about tech. Is there anything you wanted to know about some gotcha or anything like that, or is there anything for me about the show and what we've been talking about, or?
No, I mean, actually, questions I really don't have.
Okay.
I wish I did.
Right.
But I don't have questions.
One thing we have here on the show is that we have panels. So we'll invite people back who have been on the show.
Okay.
And like we'll have 3 or 4 people at a time, and then we'll ask the group questions, and they can all chime in. Would you be interested in doing something like that?
Definitely.
Okay, great.
I mean, if I don't suck, yeah, of course.
Well,
Hopefully,
so usually,
hopefully I didn't do that bad.
I don't ask people about things that they wouldn't know about. In fact, usually the questions are tuned to the guests.
Okay.
So it'll be something. I'll try to find a thing that everyone has in common. So it might not all be about cars or racing, but it would be things that we've talked about that you mentioned that you know.
I understand it's more to life than cars.
Right. Well, yeah. I see what you mean. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
All
I
right.
was really excited. It was a little nervous
a pleasure.
at the beginning.
Jonathan Vasquez.
Jonathan Vasquez from JVR Auto in Port Washington, New York. If you guys ever need anything,
and they'll
just give
take
us a call.
regular auto work.
I
and
do
performance
anything.
work.
Any car.
And apparently rat rods too. So I didn't even know you did that. So.
Like I said, anything.
Wow,
We
great.
don't say no to anything.
All right. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll
Thank
see
you
you
very
next
much.
week. Next week, Jeannie Boyle's back.